Welcome back to Fantasy Wildcard, charity Streamathon 2022. I'm one of your co-hosts, Kev. You can follow me on Twitter at dynasty_goat. With me tonight, kicking off quarter four, is my amazing co-host, Matt, who you can follow on Twitter at MattFFDynasty. Good evening, Matt. How are you doing?
Evening, Kev. Yeah, holding up just about. I mentioned about halfway through that my back had gone and I was struggling with my back, so we've made it to the fourth quarter, still powering on. It's been a lot of fun so far. 4 hours to go. I'm more than ready for it and looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm feeling exactly the same. I've had a little short break a while ago. I went to see one of Will Fuller's mates, so I'm in a really good mood now. I've got the little boost I needed to see me through in this final quarter. As we mentioned, Streamathon, it's 16 hours long. It's 4 streams, all 32 NFL teams talking about them from a dynasty perspective. We're into the final 4 hours of final stream, but the reason we're doing it all, it's raising funds for a fantastic charity in mind, and this is supporting people with mental health issues and facilitating improvement to their mental health. Us at the Fantasy Wildcard team, we want to help this amazing charity. We'd be delighted if you could too. To do this, please check out our link tree on our Twitter page at Fantasy Wildcard. The website can also be seen on our banner at the bottom of this stream, and that's at justgiving.com/fundraising/Fantasy Wildcard 2022. We would be absolutely delighted if you could make any contribution, and it will be open until the 6th of June as well. So if you're watching this and it's in the future, I guess, from where we're talking now, you can still donate up until the 6th of June. So thank you for your support so far. So we're in the fourth quarter. We've got through the North, the East, and the South, which means we're left with the West. The AFC and the NFC West teams, what we're going to be talking about over the next 4 hours. We'll be looking at it from a dynasty fantasy perspective. And kicking us off is the AFC West. We're going to look at, well, all 4 teams are amazing, but we're going to kick off with 2 of these 4 amazing teams, the Chiefs and the Broncos. And we're going to start off with the Chiefs, Matt, actually. Get you to get the ball rolling at the QB position. And, we'll discuss the Chiefs.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just me and you, Kev. So this is going to be a lot of fun talking about, as you mentioned, two great teams here in the Chiefs and Broncos going through different situations currently in terms of the franchise, starting with the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes now seems to have lost that consensus dynasty QB1 status that he's seemed to have had for the last few years. Obviously losing Tyreek Hill to the Miami Dolphins, you can kind of understand why. So Kev, what's your feelings on that? Do you agree that he's now sadly moved away from that QB1 in dynasty, and do you have any concerns for Mahomes entering 2022?
Yeah, he's not my QB1. He's definitely still in that top tier. I think, first of all, it's not for any fault of his own, really. I think the fact that Josh Allen has been so amazing the past couple of seasons, it's not a case that Mahomes has lost the QB1. It's the case that Allen has won the QB1 spot in Dynasty for me. I think he's done fantastically well over the years. Mahomes has got the highest ceiling. When he's on it, I think... Well, actually, I'm going to take that back. He's not got the highest ceiling. It's Josh Allen, but he's got the highest floor. That's what I meant. The fact that as a passer, he is the best in the league. There's a few people that could get close to him. Justin Herbert's one of them. I think he's got a ton of talent as well. But Mahomes shouldn't be outside your top 3, I think. And I would have bumped him down even if he kept Tyreek Hill, to be fair. I think the addition of Juju is nice. He's got Kelsey, who is fantastic. They've added Sky Moore as well. Other little bits who are better than the bits of lost. MVS is better than Pringle or DeMarcus Robinson, whoever. Sky Moore's also better than those 2 guys that have departed. So, he's absolutely solid. I'm not going to criticize anybody if they've got him 1, if they've got him 3. He's there for a reason. He's so safe. But I do think Josh Allen deserves to be up over him. And personally, I have got Justin Herbert ahead of him. Maybe that's a knee-jerk reaction to losing Tyreek Hill. I don't know. But I'm there with Herbert. He's had a fantastic start to his career as well. He's done it in a tougher situation than Mahomes at a younger age. So that's where I'm at. How about you, Matt?
No, I'm so glad that you said you had him QB3 because I was starting to worry. I thought you were going to say you had him in QB2, and which would be fine. But I've done exactly the same thing. I've knocked him down to QB3. I remember stating it on Twitter that I've moved him down, and I got a bit of flack from some people that I've moved him down to that QB3 spot. But yeah, just in terms of Mahomes, it was always that dynasty QB1 or right up there, and it's for the reasons that you touched on. I feel like it's the flaw with Mahomes is why he should always be around that range, because we know there's upside there. We've seen it before. He's finished as the QB1 before. But then just looking at the last couple of years, QB4, QB7. So, as I say, you know he's that real safe quarterback. And in terms of dynasty and obviously fantasy football, that's what you need really from your quarterback. You want that upside, you want that ceiling, which he does have, but then also that flaw as well, which is shown time and time again. So, yeah, he should definitely be in the top three. As I say, I caught a bit of flack for moving him down to 3, but I still feel those 3 quarterbacks offer what I've just mentioned, really, that safe floor and then the upside as well. I don't think he has the upside that Josh Allen has. I begrudgingly moved him up to my QB1 for the first couple of years when he came to the NFL. I was so against Josh Allen. I refused to believe that even when he started showing signs of improvement, I was slow jumping on the train. But yeah, I mean, the fact that he's gone back to back now, I believe QB1 finishes. Yeah, he's got to slide in there just because of that rushing upside, the passing upside. Yeah, Josh Allen's got it all, and obviously Justin Herbert as well, that we spoke about, the fact that he's shown out so well as such a young quarterback. Again, he feels pretty similar to Mahomes, really, that safe quarterback that's got that upside, a really exciting offense that you could maybe liken to what the Chiefs have been like for the last couple of years. The LA Chargers seem to be on that kind of trajectory. So yeah, these 3 quarterbacks are the top 3. They should definitely be in a tier above the other quarterbacks anyway. And yeah, Mahomes, still really love him, still think he's a fantastic quarterback. In terms of actual talent, I'd argue he's probably one of the best quarterbacks in the league. But yeah, QB3, I'm happy to have him there. And the Tyreek Hill trades, obviously a knock against him, but at the same time they brought in some new weapons now that I'm sure we're going to discuss it at length.
Exactly, and it's also that he's got some risk attached to the weapons. Obviously, he shouldn't put too much in the weapons, but when they're as good as Travis Kelce, can he keep it up? Probably, actually, because he's a unicorn, but he's getting on in age. I think even if Tyreek Hill stayed, again, he's getting a little bit older for a speedy guy. If he loses a step, it's potentially more impactful than sort of a route running guy. Juju's got a 1-year deal, so that's something. If he has a great season, does he want to move on and get paid, or is he happy to stick around? So yeah, there's a lot of risk involved in Mahomes, which sounds crazy because he's the most talented guy. If we just talk about talent as a passer, he's the number one. But yeah, he's got to be in your top 3. We're not saying he's not. We're just saying he's not QB1 anymore.
Yep.
One guy who, well, this guy should never have been a number 1 at his position. I was off this guy, and then I got bullied into getting on him, and it would have been the best take of all time, to be fair. But we're going to move on to Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the dynasty time bomb, as I'm going to call him. He was up with Jonathan Taylor in the rookie drafts. He's slid, and then he could have got back in, and then he slid again. There's been opportunities to move off him, and to be honest, I've moved off him in pretty much every league. I might have one share of him. I had 4 or 5 or 6 at one point. I've been getting rid of him for not straight up, because I think if you're trying to get rid of him straight up, you're going to struggle. I've been trying to hide him in deals, sneak him in the back door, get him out, and just try and move off him where I can. But that's my tactic. I just want to hear about your thoughts on getting away from him. How do you trade him away? What's the pivot down? Is there anybody ranked below him in ADP? That's one question. Is there anybody below him? But is there anybody below him you want to trade down to and actually feel good about it?
Yeah, I'll just start by saying it's been crazy, hasn't it, with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. It's funny that you spoke about, you used to call him Clyde Edwards hilarious, and yeah, it's just brilliant that he was right up there alongside Jonathan Taylor. I know that there was a few leagues where I had the 102. I had Jonathan Taylor above Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I will say I liked him as a prospect. I thought he could be one of those guys that you could get later on, but obviously he landed in that situation with the Chiefs and the hype got out of control. But yeah, as I say, in those 102 spots, seeing Clyde Edwards-Helaire go 101 me grabbing Jonathan Taylor 102. It's I love him for that part that I've managed to get Jonathan Taylor. But no, just going back to him as a player and what I do with him. I mean, it's tough, man, because his value is fallen through the floor. Basically, it's dropped. Just looking at keep trade cut, RB28. It's about where I've got him, to be honest, in my rankings. I think I've got him RB29. Is there hope there? I feel like there's got to be some hope. I mean, he's playing alongside Patrick Mahomes. I think when he has played, he's shown flashes. It's not like he's been downright terrible. I just think the injuries have obviously derailed things. And then the fact that he's had people coming after him and they've produced, and you feel like, well, why is Clyde Edwards-Helaire not done that? I think of guys like Williams that came in and saw work in the receiving game. You're thinking, why has Clyde Edwards-Helaire never really had that shot at being the receiving back? So yeah, there's still a little bit of mystery, a little bit of what the hell's happening with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But just in terms of what I'm doing with him now in Dynasty, I'm still looking to get off him if possible. But like touched upon the rank and the value has dropped through the floor. And as I say, just looking now at keep trade cut, is there anyone below him? I mean, is way down the list. So there's not many I can choose from unless I'm choosing some guys that aren't going to have a role. A name that maybe stands out in this one, maybe people don't agree with it, but Rachaad White, I think, is a guy that I'd maybe potentially be okay moving off and going for him. He's currently ranked RB33 on keep trade cut. In my rankings, I personally have White a couple of spots above Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and now I know that if I just said that outright and said that I'd move off Clyde Edwards-Helaire, a guy that everybody loved in the Dynasty community at one time, for a guy that's just been taken round 3, you probably think I'm crazy, but I feel like you've got to do that. Really, you've got to bite the bullet and just admit basically that we were wrong with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. That the hype was far too out of control, and as I say, you've just got to bite the bullet now. Accept the fact that you're never going to get that kind of value that you paid for him, and just look to pivot off for somebody that can produce. And as I say, Rachaad White's a guy that I feel is currently being a little bit undervalued in Dynasty. He's got knocks against him, obviously going alongside Leonard Fournette, a bit of an older running back in terms of his age as a rookie. So that's somebody I'd look at, somebody that I like in this draft class at the running back position. I've got him RB4. So that'd be my personal pivot if I could move on for somebody like Rachaad White. Doesn't sound great now in terms of just name value, but I feel like you're going to get more out of Rachaad White in the next 2-3 years than what you could potentially get out of Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Yeah, I think if you're purely looking at moving one for one and a little bit on top, it is really tricky to try and get rid of him just based on the stink that's around him. But I guess if you've got him on a contending team, it's gross, but maybe moving off him and getting a little bit on top. Damian Harris and a little bit on top for a 1 year sort of stab in the dark. Maybe Damian Harris gets re-signed. He's done well as a 2-down guy. But I do like the idea of someone like Rachaad White, who's he's going to need a little bit of luck to hit, but he's a day 2 guy. He's likely going to get a shot to have a slightly bigger than 50-50 split in the backfield. Or you could just really shoot them in and think, you know what, there's guys like Tony Pollard, like Alexander Mattison. Do you just hope that they get the job at some point in the future? Because if you don't believe that Edwards-Helaire is going to do anything now, is he going to suddenly going to come on in 2 or 3 years' time when he might be on his second team beyond the Chiefs, which would, I mean, that'd kill him in the community because the Chiefs are just such a hype spot, I guess. But speaking of hype spot, this guy that you're going to talk about now, Matt, I mean, he's landed in a hype spot. I think he's pretty decent, but I'll let you take it away on this one. Yeah,
I mean, all these wide receivers now that we're going to talk about, the fact that they're on the Chiefs, they already get that little increase in value just purely for being a Chiefs wide receiver. But we'll start with Juju Smith-Schuster, obviously, signing with the Chiefs this offseason, looking at keep trade cut. Currently, the wide receiver 40. I mean, this question was set up for the guest that we're having on, and now I've got to ask you, Kevin. I know that you really like Juju Smith-Schuster, but I'm assuming, but are you looking to buy or sell Juju at that price? Obviously, bearing in mind he's just on that 1 year prove it deal, really.
I mean, if you made it wide receiver 20, if you cut it in half, I think that is the point. I'm super high on him. Wide receiver 19, I've got him. I do favour. I know. Wow. I do favour veteran production. So he's above all those rookies for me. I really liked him at Pittsburgh. I was trying to get into him towards the end of last season in the hope that he moved on or Big Ben ended up moving on, and it was both actually. I think when it got to free agency, I knew he was going to move. I like that. Then he signed with the Chiefs, and I like that. And then they didn't take that round one wide receiver. Obviously, Sky Moore is fantastic. Oh, I forgot one thing. One slight little bit of news. They traded Tyreek Hill away. So, yeah, he's going to be the number one in that offense. Well, he's going to be the number one wide receiver. Kelsey's still going to be the number one weapon, but I'm still fully in on Juju Smith-Schuster. It might blow up in my face. He might stink up the place, but yeah, I had him that high before Mahomes. Well, not that high, but he was on his way up before Mahomes, and then just all the factors, Tyreek Hill, Sky Moore, etc., moved him up. So yeah, if you find anybody that's got him higher than wide receiver 19, just let me know.
Well, to be honest, Kev, I think you might be on your own with that one. I thought I was quite high around that mid-20s range, 26, 25. I thought that was high, but yeah, you smashed it out of the park there with having Juju up that high. But it's hard not to love the situation at least. I mean, the contract is potentially a negative against him only that 1 year, so no real job security in terms of long-term being with the Chiefs. But like we touched upon, and we kind of mentioned it on a previous podcast before the Tyreek Hill trade, was the upside was there for Juju if anything were to happen to Tyreek Hill. At that time we was talking about maybe injuries, but now obviously with Tyreek Hill moving on, Juju had that spell where he was clearly the wide receiver one there. Obviously now Sky Moore's been drafted in the second round, so there's now competition there again. But Juju's now become that veteran, that more reliable known quantity at wide receiver. So I still think he's really interesting. The landing spot is obviously amazing in terms of his playing with Patrick Mahomes, one of the best quarterbacks in the league. So there's definitely upside there. We've seen that proven production from him. He was finished wide receiver 8. Obviously that was over with the Steelers and alongside Antonio Brown. So maybe that's a positive that they brought in someone like Sky Moore. It's not all the attention now on Juju Smith-Schuster. So I like him. I like the situation. Still only 25 years old. So I feel like people forget just how young he was when he came in. I mean, we've only got to talk about Velus Jones that's just come into the NFL. They played alongside each other in college. God, so I mean, that just says it all about how old Jones is, but also how young Juju Smith-Schuster is. So like the talent, like the situation that he's in. Kind of in that prove it deal into 1 year deal. So he's got to go out there and earn that big contract. So yeah, I like Juju Smith-Schuster, especially for 2022.
And this is a guy that's 25 years old. He was a wide receiver 8 in his second season. He's been a top 20 wide receiver 3 times. So you know that wasn't just a fluke season. Yeah. He's hit young. He's hit a good standard several times. I think he's a sleeping giant, and I'd rather just pay up now rather than try and pay up in the future. That's just me. We'll see. We'll see how wrong I am in a year's time. But I do love him, and we'll keep it wide receiver. This is a guy that we both really like, actually, Sky Moore. We've both got him ranked 5 in our rookie rankings. I just want to know what percentage chance you think that in a year's time, and this is if Juju's still there, what percentage chance do you think that Sky Moore is the alpha or the wide receiver one being taken in dynasty startups next off season?
Well, I mean, it's tough. It's all just assumption working it really at the moment with Sky Moore. While I did love him as a prospect, and obviously the landing spot. To be honest, I'm fuming about the landing spot because Sky Moore was someone that I was targeting regardless of where he landed. But now the fact that he's gone to the Chiefs means I've got to now pay a premium. But I think we've just spoke about it with Juju. He's kind of a guy that he tends to play better alongside somebody that commands that wide receiver 1 spot, and Juju being that number 2. So I feel like Sky Moore's got that potential where he can fill in and become the wide receiver 1 in this offense, or label him as the alpha, as you put it. So percentage wise, I'd say it's probably over 50%. I really do. Really do like Sky Moore and the potential upside. The sky's the limit, all that jazz that we keep saying in fantasy. But do really love Sky Moore, like I touched upon. Got him as my wide receiver 5. The landing spot is great long term, playing with Patrick Mahomes for the next 4 years, potentially longer. It's hard not to get excited by Sky Moore.
I just can't believe there was a whole host of teams taking wide receivers. I'm not going to mention them specifically, but
you could mention the Giants.
The Giants. I think the Colts as well. It might be the pick before, something like that. Just screaming out for a Sky Moore opposite Michael Pittman. There'll be others as well, obviously, guys that went above Sky Moore that probably shouldn't. But what you was on him more than me before the draft. I think I wasn't knee-jerk moving up just because the Chiefs. I don't really care about landing spot. It's about draft capital for me, and I really like second-round pick. They did have 2 first-round picks, but I've looked a little bit deeper into that. I know I threw a bit of shade at them for doing that, but they picked up 2 cracking players on defense, which I think it was Kyle Afkis and McDuffie, maybe the cornerback, 2 guys that had easily solid round 1 grades. So I can't be too mad at my old mate Andy Reid for his from his time in Philly. To be honest, the Chiefs smashed the draft for those first 3 picks. They were all guys that was being mocked in round 1, so fair play to them on that. My percentage is probably lower. I think Juju's going to stick around, obviously. Obviously, I'm going to say that he's in my top 20, which is scandalous. But yeah, we'll move on from the wide receiver room and talk about a wide receiver in a tight end position now.
Yeah, I mean, Travis Kelce, what an absolute legend he is in terms of fantasy, the dominance that he's had at the tight end position. I believe 5 years in a row that he was the fantasy tight end 1. Sadly lost that title to Mark Andrews this year, but still finished the tight end 2. So, I mean, there's no need to overreact too much to that. But on the flip side, he is getting up there in age, 33 years old. Kev, do you think we're potentially now beginning to see the start of the decline? I mean, tight end 2, it's 1 spot down from tight end 1. Is there another couple of spots he could maybe slide down next year?
I mean, I was just trying to gather my thoughts then, and I was thinking who could actually be the tight end 1 this season, just as a in dynasty, who's got the potential to be the tight end 1, sort of this season or beyond. And it's literally Kelce, Andrews, Pitts. They're the only 3. Kittle, he's very overrated in my eyes. I can't see anybody else making that jump yet. It might be even too early for Kyle Pitts. So we're going to discount them. Andrews or Kelce is the question. And we asked it to Mags early on today, which seems like forever ago on Stream 1. But I think both the situations have improved in terms of what's happened around them. The fact that the Chiefs have lost Tyreek Hill, the Ravens have lost Hollywood Brown. I'm just going to go back to Travis Kelce, I think, just because better passing QB, first of all. Second of all, I think what they've brought in, it really complements the rest of it. It really is going to open it up for him, obviously. Sky Moore, he's great deep. He wins deep. Juju, yeah, it does win over the middle, but actually a lot of the reason he was being used with a lower A-dot is because of Big Ben. So I do think he's got the potential to win in that intermediate and deep range. With the Ravens, with Andrews, he's got to be bracketed on every play. If they don't add anybody else, it's double, triple Andrews, maybe throw some cover over Bateman and spy Lamar Jackson. That's going to be the game plan for a lot of teams. So it's close, but Travis Kelce to be the tight end 1 this season in terms of dynasty, take your pick. It's Kyle Pitts 1, and then one of those 2, 2 and 3. How have you got it currently between Andrews and Kelce?
No, I mean, I think you've nailed it, Kev, to be honest. I mean, talking in terms of dynasty and where I value them, obviously, Kyle Pitts has got to go in at that tight end 1 just because of the age and what he could do in the future. But then beyond that, who's my tight end 2 in dynasty? I've still personally got Travis Kelce there as my tight end 2. As great as Mark Andrews is. And obviously, the younger guy out of the 2, the situation that he's in as well, obviously, at the moment, he's kind of on that Travis Kelce top pass catching weapon in that offense. So there's obviously that, but I just feel like Travis Kelce, the fact that he's produced year after year after year, as I say, 5 years being the tight end 1, the 1 year that he had that we're going to label as a down year is the tight end 2. I mean, the guy's just an absolute beast. And then just looking at times where he's missed games, I believe didn't miss a game up until this season, and then he only missed the one game through injury. So even though he's getting up there in age, he still plays through, whether he's picked up a knock or what, he still plays on. And the fact that he's only missed one game through injury anyway in the last 5 or 6 years just goes to show that I feel like he's still got plenty left in him. We know the upside, the positional advantage that you get having somebody like Travis Kelce on your dynasty roster. So yeah, for me, he's still right there at the top anyway, tight end 2. Mark Andrews right there with him at tight end 3, but both great fantasy assets, both giving you that positional advantage in fantasy. And yeah, hopefully Travis Kelce can continue to that top tight end.
And before we carry on, I just want to say, Tom, if you're listening, Ravens fan, we're not throwing shade at Mark Andrews. He's not a catfish. He is really good.
We've come around a little bit at least, because I remember us slamming Mark Andrews not too long ago, really. So yeah, what Mark Andrews has done is fantastic, and there's no denying that he's a top tight end in fantasy. But I still think Travis Kelce's got a bit left in him.
Before we move on to his next team, Matt, is there anybody else on the Chiefs worth a slight mention as someone to look out for, someone that you might be interested in?
Maybe we could try and get back into Tom's good books. I mean, there's a wide receiver over there for the Chiefs. Valdez-Scantling, this is a guy that Tom, obviously being the best ball player that he is, I'm not surprised that he loves Valdez-Scantling. Obviously, we've seen that those boom games that he has, and now going to the Chiefs and playing alongside Patrick Mahomes. Maybe those boom games could become a little bit more consistent. So he's definitely an interesting guy. Maybe not somebody that I'm looking to reach for, but I think the fact that you can get him later than these wide receivers that we spoke about, and then the fact that he's playing for the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, I think he's definitely an intriguing guy. Linking it back to Tom and his best ball roots, if you play Dynasty best ball, he could be a great player to have on your Dynasty best ball league.
Yeah, for a moment I thought I was going to get a Ronald Jones sighting, but
well, I mean, you can have your bit, because I know that you love Ronald Jones, but
yeah, I just think out of that backfield, there's going to be somebody. I'm not saying it's Jones. I'm not saying it's CH. They're both pretty gross, but there's going to be some weeks where they are used, but it's just when, isn't it? Like it's too hard to predict. So no Rojo hype from me yet. Probably never again, but we'll see.
I mean, I was just quickly having a look at where he is on Keep Trade Cut. RB50. I mean, that's kind of worth a shot, I feel like, obviously, on the Chiefs. We've seen backs that aren't named Clyde Edwards have success, so yeah.
And I think as well, like, we're being a little bit harsh on Ronald Jones. He was smashing it. He was on course to be good. Top 15, pushing towards running back 1 numbers, and then Leonard Fournette does his thing, and we never heard from Rojo again. So
a young prospect as well when he came into the NFL. So if you're worried about the age in terms of running backs, Ronald Jones is still pretty young. So
we will see. But we're now going to move on to the Broncos, another exciting team in the NFC West. It's such a great way to start Stream 4 when we're potentially flagging, but actually we're not, because we've got all that adrenaline pumping. Broncos, they made a big splash at QB. This was the missing piece for them to really put them over the top, but also really exciting news for all the dynasty pieces attached to this team. Russell Wilson, he was the guy they traded for. He actually fell as low as QB 15 at Keep Trade Cut in January. He's now back up to QB 9, which is definitely where he should be in my eyes. But just want to get your thoughts on the Broncos and sort of the move there. Do you think it's good for his dynasty prospects? Do you think he should have always been a QB 10 before we knew what was happening with the Seahawks and wherever he landed? Is he landing spot proof as well, I guess is the question.
Yeah, I think it's interesting with Russell Wilson. I seem to think back to when the trade was announced. Me and we spoke about Russell Wilson and how we felt about the change in scenery. And I think we both said that didn't really move the needle for us in terms of the offense he was going from to the offense that he's now moving on to. Both had capable pass catching weapons, and at the time it didn't really feel like it moved the needle all that much. But the fact that you mentioned he went down to QB 15, that's crazy. I'd never noticed that he fell down to QB 15, and I can't understand for the life of me why he did that. I mean, you've just got to look back at his previous finishes. Obviously, last season was a bit of disappointment finishing QB 16, but beyond that, you're just looking at QB 6, QB 3, QB 9, QB 1, QB 9, 3, 3 is always right up there as at least a QB1 in fantasy, and sometimes pushing up to being that mid to top end QB. So it's crazy that he ever fell down to QB 15. I think currently where he's at, if he's around that QB 10 mark, I think that's right. That's where he should be valued. And I think doing the Streamathon today has kind of opened my eyes a little bit as well to the fact that we all get obsessed about these young quarterbacks, these obviously sophomore rookie quarterbacks that come into the league. And while there's upside there, some of them you're kind of hoping that they become a Russell Wilson. So why are we not taking Russell Wilson? It doesn't make sense. The guy's only, 33, I think. That's still 3-4 years. We've seen quarterback, Tom Brady's 40, 45 or whatever he is. So while I don't think Russell Wilson quite goes that far, you're usually playing in that 3-year window in Dynasty. And I'll be shocked if Russell Wilson isn't playing in the NFL in 3 years. So why try and look for that Russell Wilson when Russell Wilson sat right there? So my eyes have been opened a little bit today. We're talking about all of these players and Russell Wilson, it should definitely be a top 10 QB. I think I've got him QB 9, and the situation that he's in, we're going to talk about some of the weapons that he's got in a little bit, but like we mentioned when the trade happened, the situation's still great in terms of weapons that he's got over there with the Broncos. And I'm just excited to see what he can do over there. Maybe they let him cut him loose now and let him throw the ball a little bit more than what Pete Carroll did over at Seattle. And it's going to be exciting to see what he does next year.
I've just checked. I've got him QB 9. I think actually when the news broke, I was a bit worried that the community might bump him up, thinking he's moved from the Seahawks to the Broncos, and that's great. But I mean, you're comparing DK and Lockett to Sutton and Judy. Firstly, I'm taking DK and Lockett on that respect, but I think QB 9 is absolutely fine. He's going to be playing on a better team. He's going to be controlling games as well. So whatever he wants to do, he can. And just about the age thing, you know what? He is seen as a bit of a rushing QB, but he's a wonderful passer as well. Yeah. He's not like you. In fact, I'm not going to throw shade at anybody. We're doing this stream for charity. I'm not going to be awful to any QBs. So QB 9. He shouldn't have never been out at top 10 for me. But we're going to now come on to a guy that, he's had plenty of hype. It's dampened a little bit. Then it goes up. Then it dampens again. So who we talk about now, Matt?
Yeah, we're going to talk about Javontae Williams, and it'd have been great to have a guest on for this part because I know me and you, I feel like we're on that similar kind of wavelength when it comes to Javontae Williams. He currently sits as the RB3 on Keep Trade Cut. Personally, that's still a touch too high for me given the situation he's in, what he's shown as a rookie. So, Kev, what's your feelings on that value? Have you got him there, or do you think it's a little bit overblown where he is right now?
I can tell myself a story both ways. When we was talking about Swift earlier being running back 2, it does kind of feel gross because it's the top of a tier. And if you said Javonte's running back 6, you'd be buzzing. If you're saying he's running back 2 or 3, you're kind of like, oh, well, it's a little bit too expensive. I think he's up there based on potential. And so Swift, actually, if you look at the pure numbers, Swift was top 10 in fantasy points per game. Javontae, I don't think he was close to that. I think he just hoping for that full backfield, and he's not going to get it this season. Yeah. If you're playing on your short windows, do you take a gamble and hope that a guy like a Breece Hall actually gets the full load, which we obviously don't want for Michael Carter, but there's that sort of, and I've used this phrase a couple of times today, re-rolling and seeing, is it better? It is tough. I actually don't see many trades with Javontae involved because I think the owners that have got him, they obviously value him really high. They don't want to move off a 22, 23-year-old running back. I think the only way they would is moving up. And again, it's even harder to make trades for Jonathan Taylor. So, I don't see many trades with Javontae. It's probably roundabout right. It's very close between sort of 2 and 5, 2 and 6 with Javontae in there. The only caveat I'd say is if you're not fully in on Javontae, just move off him to ETN in the first because ETN's a better prospect coming out.
Yeah, I mean, that was a lot of fun when we spoke about ETN a little bit earlier on today. But Javontae, you kind of nailed it, to be honest, Kev, mentioning about DeAndre Swift and being the top of that tier 2. And that's exactly how I've got it. Swift is my RB2 in that second tier, and then Javontae Williams, I've got him as my RB6, but he's still that tier 2. He's the bottom of that tier 2. So then on the flip side, it becomes, if I can get him, he's a tier 2 guy for me, get him at RB6. That feels good. Obviously, the value's not quite there. So that's why for me, Javontae Williams is kind of a tough one at the given price of RB3, because I feel he's a touch low, but then on the same side, he's in that tier. So I'm not going to go crazy and say that I'm not going to get him at that price, because he's in that tier 2 for me. But yeah, I know there's loads of metrics that on PFF that you can go into about Javontae Williams and that rookie year. There's some stats that really stand out. I don't have them in front of me firsthand, but I know that his efficiency was amazing. It was just the opportunity, obviously, that he had over there playing with Melvin Gordon that kind of took the shine off it a little bit. Everybody could see, we saw it all over Twitter, didn't we, Kev? Every time he had one of those big runs when he was just bullying guys, bullying defenders. Yeah, everyone was getting super excited about Javontae Williams. Why is he not the workhorse in this backfield? But obviously they see something in Melvin Gordon, and he had a great season in terms of fantasy. It was pretty much dead down the middle, 50-50 in terms of opportunity, production, in terms of numbers and fantasy. It was pretty 50-50. So yeah, there's obviously a reason why they brought Melvin Gordon back. A lot of people thought it was going to happen. It has happened. It's kind of a damper on Javontae Williams, but he's still such a young running back that's, as I say, he's shown the efficiency that he can have with the limited opportunity. And yeah, everyone's rightfully getting excited about that potential opportunity. Sadly, not going to get it in this upcoming season, but yeah, long term, I think he's a great running back to have in Dynasty.
Yeah, and you mentioned excitement there. That just ties in really nicely with the next guy I'm going to talk about, Courtland Sutton. He flashed mega promise early on in his career. He was a top 20 wide receiver when he was tied to the All-Pro Drew Lock. Lol. But yeah, I just want to know with Sutton, if you think he can get his career back on track. Has he got the potential to hit another top 20 season this year with Russell Wilson there as well?
Yeah, I mean, this is another really interesting one. Obviously, Courtland Sutton kind of lost a bit of value last year with, like you mentioned, the fact that he was playing with Drew Lock. It wasn't great, but now everyone seems to be falling back in love with Courtland Sutton. He's obviously shown flashes in previous years, and now getting that elite quarterback in Russell Wilson. Yeah, I think if you're looking for a way that a wide receiver bounces back, this is the ideal situation, getting that improved elite level quarterback, and obviously going from the Doug quarterback that he was contending with in previous years. So yeah, this is the ideal situation. I think he can potentially bounce back and be a top 20 wide receiver. We spoke about it at length today on the Streamathon. Obviously, it's tough to get into that top 20 wide receivers just because the amount of talent that we've now got at wide receiver. It feels there's just so much of it really in Dynasty, and there's a load of guys that you can make a case for getting into the top 20. You could probably name 35, 40 guys that you think could sneak into the top 20. So yeah, well, I think it might be tough for him to do. I think the potential is definitely there. As I say, the quarterback situation is key to this, and I feel like Courtland Sutton is one of those guys that can be a red zone threat. So you're getting those touchdowns, and he's got the production as well in terms of receiving yards. So yeah.
Yeah, I've got to say I agree with Matt. I think he will be a top 20 wide receiver this season. I'm not going to say I'm 100% certain, but I'm pretty sure if he's injury free, he's gonna be the man. I guess my pause would be, what if the Broncos defense is elite again and the sort of pace of play drops? They've got a new coach there, so we don't really know the tendencies as to how that's going to be when you think about the Packers, where it's come from Aaron Rodgers. He just seems to milk games, and because he's so good, he doesn't need to play at a fast pace. He's and it's not saying Russell Wilson can't be that guy, but there is a bit of risk there with that. There's also the fact that people are expecting Jerry Judy to make a step, that Albert O to make a step. All these bits. So I personally think he will be a top 20 wide receiver, but small doubt that he's not. I've got Sutton. Well, I had Sutton on a team that's in a pretty decent rebuild, and I actually moved him for a 23 first, which I was pretty happy with, because it's just a lottery ticket. It might be one of the wide receivers in that draft. It might be an absolute killer QB or running back as well. So I just thought, you know what, I really like Sutton. Yeah. I'm not actively looking to move off him, but if someone's going to throw a 23 first at me, I'm going to snaffle out big time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm not the biggest ever guy, but I know for a fact that 2023 class is absolutely stacked. So no matter what range you get that 2023 first, no matter if it's late first, you're still going to get a quality player. And if somehow it becomes an early first, yeah, I mean, wow, love it.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting move with him being 26 going into age 27 very soon. So we're going to keep it a wide receiver. Let you go, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, we spoke about some. Didn't really get to talk too much about Jerry Jeudy, but I feel like both of those guys are guys that people are really excited about, with Russell Wilson coming into town over in Denver. So I thought we'd switch it up, go to two of the other wide receivers over there that maybe don't get the hype that maybe they should be getting. So there's Tim Patrick over there and KJ Hamler. Kev, you probably know my answer to this one, but are you targeting either of these two guys in Dynasty now that Russell Wilson's there?
You do love your deep guys, Matt. I'll give you that. KJ Hamler, true for I believe. I like both of these four in the best ball format. I think they're interesting. I don't think Judy's going to miss any time. If he did, that'd be huge. I like both of them. Tim Patrick was brilliant last season. His profile coming out it was terrible, to be fair. Not fast, not great in any overall or in any particular area. So he's done really well to carve out a career. I don't think he's dropped a pass in his life. That might be a joke, but yeah, it's going to be tough to find out when you're going to play these guys without an injury. If it's a deep roster and you've got them on there and there's an injury to say Sutton or Jeudy, which isn't out of the realm of possibility because of both missed time previously. Yeah, you can feel confident to stick him in a flex spot and see how it goes. But I do struggle just to think, you know what? It's 4 wide receivers, 2 flex. Am I going to stick Tim Patrick in? Maybe, but you can probably find that production on waivers in most leagues. Sorry to say. What are your thoughts on these two guys? And if you want to go, I can talk Jeudy as well.
Well, I mean, let me talk about the deep guys first. You just mentioned that. I must play in a load of deep fantasy leagues because I always seem to be getting excited about these deeper guys. Maybe it's just because I play in leagues that have so many bench spots that I get excited by these guys. But yeah, KJ Hamler, you mentioned it before. He's the guy that, in terms of a dart thrower later, guy that I really like. I think your profiles are quite similar to Tyler Lockett. We know the success that Lockett had over there with Russell Wilson, and now with Russell Wilson coming over. I really like KJ Hamler. People forget he was a 2nd round pick, albeit not with this coaching staff, but obviously there's draft capital there. The thing that's against him, and rightfully so, is the knee injuries that he's had. I believe he's had 2 knee injuries now in 2 years that he's played. So fully understand that that's definitely a concern with KJ Hamler. But I just see a bit of upside there with him. Like you said, though, it's going to be tough to have any faith in him unless either we see some early production from him where he's getting a more steady level of volume, or as you say, if one of the top 2 wide receivers goes down. But yeah, out of the dart throws, KJ Hamler. But since we've got a little bit of time, we might as well talk a little bit about Jerry Jeudy. Another wide receiver on this offense that's really exciting. Personally, I have him above Courtland Sutton in my rankings. I believe you're the other way around. So it'll be interesting to get your thoughts on him. But yeah, a guy that's not quite hit the heights that we're expecting. We know he's one of the elite route runners out of the class that he came from, and even just in terms of the entire NFL, to be honest, he's right up there in his route running. And yeah, with Russell Wilson coming over, I feel like he's in a real great spot at the moment. So yeah, have you got anything to add to Jerry Jeudy, Kev?
Not loads, really. I just think like it's really hard. He's not hit the first 2 seasons, really. He was like wide receiver 47, 48 year 1, and then obviously the injury season last year. It's just really hard for me to get as excited as the community have. I think as a prospect, he was great. He's not shown it the first 2 years. People are going to pump him up because they're still in on him as a prospect. They're still in on him because of Russell Wilson. Yeah, I you know me, wide receiver wise, I like to just go for guys that have proven it. And if 26, 27, 29, 30, I'm not fussed. I think there's definitely potential there for him to smash and if he ended up like Deontay Johnson, it wouldn't shock me. But he's miles away from Deontay Johnson in my eyes right now.
Yeah, no, I think you make a great point, obviously, about the age. I think it's only really running backs where we need to get super hung up on the age. I mean, the wide receivers, there's longevity there. And like you said, why not go for that proven talent, even if he is 26, 27? We've still got 3 years. As we talk about, that tends to be the window that we aim at in Dynasty. So, yeah, I can fully get behind that. And there's definitely wide receivers on other teams that I'd take over Jerry Jeudy. It's been interesting as well in the recent weeks. Obviously, there was that whole issue with getting arrested and what was going on there. I mean, that was a potential nice little window to buy him if you could buy him, because people seem to think that was something bigger than it was. Really, it turns out that the way it looks, I've not seen too much recently, but it looks like that's something of nothing really. And Jerry Jeudy should be there to play week 1. So yeah, that was interesting. That was a little bit of interesting stuff that happened in the off season with Jeudy. But yeah, as I say, like both of these guys with Russell Wilson there.
I wonder if you like both of these guys in the current spot. Now we're going to wrap up the Broncos with the tight end spot. Albert O, a lot of hype for him after Noah Fant was traded as part of that deal for Wilson. But actually, when you look at these guys, they're going back to back now in rankings at Keep Trade Cut. There's Fant and then Albert O. I think the Broncos taking Dulcich has pumped the brakes a small bit on Albert O. Noah Fant, people are going to see is attached to Drew Lock or Geno Smith, and probably they might fade him even a little bit more. I'm not too sure. So these are back to back. I just want to know who you're taking in Dynasty. Are you taking the current tight end for the Broncos in Albert O, or the former tight end in Noah Fant?
This may surprise some people, but Noah Fant for me is the guy that I've got above out of these two, and actually by a fair little bit. I've got Noah Fant, my tight end 11, Albert O, my tight end 16. So there's a bit of a gap between those two guys. I think it's funny that you mentioned Noah Fant obviously going over to the Seahawks and mentioning that he's playing with Drew Lock. I mean, do you know who his quarterback was when he was over at Denver? I mean, there's not a great movement for me in terms of quarterback play, because he's got basically the same quarterback. And if it's Geno Smith, I mean, while not great, no worse than Drew Lock for me. So don't think it's a terrible move. It's a lateral move, but I don't think it's any worse. Obviously, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett over there in terms of wide receivers, and you could argue that they're more talented than what he had over at Denver. But I personally still got Fant over Albert O. Like you touched upon, Dulcich going to the Broncos kind of put a little bit of a dampener on the hype that was building around Albert O. And while I still do think that he can have a solid year, he's still got them same issues that we mentioned with Noah Fant when he was over there. There's competition for targets with the wide receivers that they've got there. So personally, I've got Noah Fant a touch higher. He was far higher recruited in terms of where he was drafted in the NFL. Obviously going in round 1 of the NFL draft. So yeah, Noah Fant for me, I think talent wise, he's better than Albert O. So that's how I've got it.
It's so hard, is this? Like, I've just looked at my rankings, and I'm gonna be honest. I've not updated my tight end rankings in a couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. I can tell a story both ways. To be fair, I think obviously Fant's got the caliber, the pedigree. He's got a new opportunity. We don't know how highly the Seahawks rate him. Was he a throw? Was he someone they requested as part of the trade? We're not sure yet. Albert Owe was getting that hype. It's now under a new coaching staff that's took a tight end in round 3 with better draft capital than Albert Owe got. So it's really tough. I've got Albert Owe above me in my rankings, but you know what, Matt? I think I'm going to have to switch that round. And it does pay me to say it because I hate giving you any credit at all.
This could not have ended any better, Kev. I mean, we've gone through this on his own, and the fact that right at the end I managed to sway you, there's no better feeling than when you convince somebody to change the rankings. So love that.
It's nothing you said, but I just wanted to. No, I think just purely. It's just, do you know what? If they didn't take Dulcich, it probably would be Albert O. But that's just giving me the signs that it's a new coaching staff. Took him. Dulcich can't block, so that's one worry.
Yeah. To be honest, they're both kind of similar, both athletic tight ends. It's what we're we like in fantasy. We know that's what can get you that upside in fantasy. These athletic tight ends, both really great athletes. So I think they're both interesting in terms of fantasy. Going in that range really though that we don't quite like. Obviously Alberto was a little bit lower than where Fant was previous, and now Fant's slid down to that lower range. But two interesting guys for sure. And yeah, it could be a nice little bet that we could have who finishes higher, Fant or Alberto.
Well, we're both picking Fant, aren't we? So
well, yeah, true. Yeah, now that I've convinced you, yeah.
Now that you've convinced me, I think, I mean, coin flip really, but yeah, we'll coin flip's a phrase we might associate with us next guest actually. But that's just a tease if you watch it on the stream. Like we did on the Chiefs, we'll wrap it up with. I'll just come back to you. And is there anybody else on the Broncos you want to talk about? Melvin Gordon, maybe, or somebody deeper we've not discussed?
Well, I mean, we've gone pretty deep with the wide receivers, so there's not a great deal to talk about there. But I think Melvin Gordon's worth a quick mention. Obviously, going back to the Broncos there, it's a shame, like we touched upon when talking about Williams, that he's gone back there and kind of killed all that hype that all those dynasty players love in terms of Javontae Williams and taking away that opportunity. But as I mentioned last year, played really well. I believe he was a top 20 running back in terms of fantasy. Now goes back into a similar situation. I'd imagine Javontae Williams gets a little bit more of the share. Obviously, last year coming in as a rookie, maybe the Broncos were kind of easing him in a little bit, being that rookie running back. But I still think Melvin Gordon's a really interesting guy in terms of dynasty. He's going to go dirt cheap just because of how old he is. I believe he's 29, maybe even touching 30 when the season starts, and that's basically ancient in terms of running backs. So yeah, he's an interesting guy that you can scoop up later on as it could be a flex guy on the same page. A great handcuff if anything were to happen to Javontae Williams. It could be really interesting.
And where he's going in your dynasty drafts, what running back 3, running back 4, maybe even later, depending on how ageist your league is. First of all, he's going to give you some standalone value. Some weeks, bye weeks, he's going to contribute. But I think the thing as well is at that price, if Javontae Williams goes down, you've got probably like top 15 running back 1 type guy. So.
Yeah, and I've just had a quick look at Keep Trade Cut. Sorry, where his ranking is RB49, and then you just got to look at the rookie running backs going above him: Zamir White, Brian Robinson, and TDP as well. Obviously over at the 49ers, all those guys going above him.
Brian Robinson, stop it!
Tell me about it, Kev. I mean that's crazy. If you're looking for production, these are guys that are going in the 3rd round of your rookie drafts. You can throw a 3rd round pick and get Melvin Gordon, like you touched upon. There's that potential upside if anything were to happen to Javontae Williams, but even if not, you've still got a potential flex play there in Melvin Gordon.
Indeed. So, do you know what, Matt? I think we've absolutely smashed the Chiefs and the Broncos.
Absolute pleasure, mate. It's been brilliant. Me and you back together. OG, loved it.
Best 2 out of. Nah, I'm not going to go there again. But yeah, it's been a great start to stream 4. AFC West is a fantastic division. We're going to bring back Ali now for the next set of guests we've got. Hello, Ali. Nice break.
Yeah, lovely break. I've managed to get myself a nice little bottle of beer, so I'm ready to go for the final 3 hours of the show. We've got a couple of great guests coming on to talk about Raiders and the Chargers. So yeah, looking forward to it.
We'll have to get a parental advisory sticker if you're on the beers. Don't want to be. No, I'm just playing. But yeah, thank you, Matt. We'll see you in an hour's time.
Yeah, I just want to do a quick shout out. My future father-in-law, he's a massive Chargers fan. He's donated to the cause, so shout out to John. But yeah, he's a big Chargers guy. Sadly, I'm not going to be here to talk about the Chargers, but I'm leaving it in the capable hands of you two. So I know he'll be watching. So just wanted to say to shout out to John. And yeah, I'll be back with my beer. I'm going to follow all his footsteps. I'm going to grab myself a beer to see me through to the end.
Good idea, Matt.
Good stuff, Matt. Looking forward to it.
Thanks for the donation.
Indeed, John.
Right. Love it. Right, see you later, lads. Enjoy.
See you in a bit.
See you later, Matt.
He booted himself. That's fine. Cracking stuff. So yeah, we're in quarter 4. We've done the first part of Q4. We're now on to the second set of guests. We have got some absolute studs, haven't we? These guys are truly amazing. I love the podcast. The threads they do on Twitter are out of this world. So I'll pass it over to Charlie and we'll bring them in.
Yes, I think we're in our 14 of 16, so we're going to need them to power us through the last few hours. So without further ado, from Bulletproof Fantasy Football, we've got Akash and we've got Ian. Gentlemen, how are we doing?
Good. How are you guys?
We're doing well, actually. I made this joke before, but I'll make it again. I've been to see Will Fuller's mate, so I'm going pretty strong. Got a little supplement from him, so we're all good.
Love that.
Doing good, fellas. How are you guys doing?
Yeah. This is, final 3 hours. So we've lined up some fantastic guests for the final 3 hours just to get us through. So it's over to you guys to help us through the remaining 3 hours. Just looking forward to it. We've got the Raiders up first, but just thanks for coming on. We're both big fans of your work, so we're pumped to get you on. Without further ado, we'll begin with the Raiders, and over to your question, Kev.
Yeah, great to have you on, gents. As I mentioned in a few moments ago before you came in, just really big fans of your work and the podcast you've got, the threads you do. You're both pretty hilarious guys as well, so we know we're going to have a good time on this stream. But we're kicking off with the Raiders. QB spot is where we'll start, and obviously Derek Carr is a guy that's had a bump in value when they've acquired his shell buddy, Javontae Adams. I actually think Derek Carr's a pretty good yardstick versus the 2021 rookies. So I just want to know where you have Derek Carr in relation to the guys like Lawrence, Lansfield, Jones, and Wilson. Where would you rank him compared to those guys in Dynasty?
In terms of Dynasty with Derek Carr, he's valued like near the Kirk Cousins range. So I don't think we really have to worry too much about Fields and Wilson being like other options to Derek Carr, just because I don't think they're valued all too closely. But someone who's valued a little bit ahead of him, like Mac Jones, it's kind of the same thing where you're looking at guys who are probably maybe going to put up a 1 point per game of rushing, which doesn't really do much for you. So you need ultra efficient seasons as a passer to reach that high QB1 or even elite range, which him and Mac being valued close and Mac being valued higher, I'd rather just trade back and get Carr, because you're basically banking on the same thing where you need an ultra efficient passing season, and age or not, the production next season with Mac in his second year and Carr obviously down the road. There's going to be a lot of value implications on next year for both of them. So I'd rather take the guy who I trust more or believe more in having that ultra efficient passing season. That's Derek Carr, who we've seen do it multiple times. He just got Javontae Adams on his team, which only helps him. And they did bring in a new regime of coaches, but they have been in the last few years with Derek Carr, high volume passing offense, which is something that the Patriots haven't had. So I didn't mean to bring Mac Jones into this, but like looking at the same kind of value range where you're expecting everything has to be done in the air, which isn't something you totally like, because you need those ultra efficient seasons, which is something that Carr definitely is capable of doing next season.
Yeah, Ian said it well. It's basically just doing it all through the air is not ideal, but if I had to pick between one of them, I'd prefer to invest in players with any semblance of rushing, but between them, I have more confidence in Carr, even though he is a bit older. With Mac Jones, he did have an efficient rookie season, but you can never. It's hard to say that he will become a extremely efficient passer, and also doing that at high volume, which is what you need to reach elite production. Because a lot of times that you have an efficient rookie season as a passer doesn't mean you're going to have an elite career as a quarterback. Whereas Carr, I trust him a bit more, like Ian said, and with the weapons that he has, I could see him producing well. Whereas Mac Jones wasn't productive at all last year, even though he was efficient, because low volume, no rushing. It's just not a recipe for fantasy points, even if it is good for the NFL.
It's amazing how many times Mac Jones has come up today. He's like water, he gets bloody everywhere, doesn't he? For such a guy that's such a boring QB. And as you know, Ali, he's got a lot of fans in the community as well as Mac Jones for some strange reason, some sort of affinity towards him.
I do, yeah. We're with my picture put up yesterday with just exploring keep trade cut, and he was going one spot above Aaron Rodgers in the rankings, which I thought was just ludicrous. So I highlighted it, And a load of people, I just said, I can't believe that he's, ranked ahead of Aaron Rodgers. A load of people jumped on me saying, well, he's got more upside. They even said he's got more upside than Trey Lance and Justin Fields, which I couldn't quite believe where they were coming from. But yeah, I don't quite get it with Mac Jones. I think he's just a very safe quarterback too to have on your roster that I guess you can just set and forget. He's going to give you safe production. But Derek Carr, I know you're a big fan of Derek Carr, Kev. You've moved him up your dynasty rankings. He finished as quarterback 13 last year. If you think Darren Waller missed a lot of time last year, Henry Ruggs then disappeared from the team. So with obviously Darren Waller back, now Devontae Adams over there, I can see him finishing as a low quarterback one this year. What about you, Kev?
I mean, I'm probably going to get heckled by these smart dudes on the stream today, but I play on really short windows, 2-year windows. I'm thinking in my head, and I've moved Carr above. Justin Fields. I've put him above Justin Fields, which I think's gross. I hate it. Prospect wise, I think the Fields has got so much talent, but I'm very uncertain with how it's going to look for the Bears. The new regime, hardly any weapons. He's in a position to fail, really. It's going to be the talent that pulls him through, you hope. But yeah, I'm pretty high on Derek Carr. Please start heckling.
Yeah. Where do you guys stand on Derek Carr and Justin Fields? Would you still have Justin Fields way ahead of Derek Carr in Dynasty?
Are they in the same tier?
Yeah, no, not
Fields
the
is
same.
way ahead.
Yeah. I think in terms
chasing
of
the upside, settling for Derek Carr is not something I'm looking to be doing. But last year he was QB 15 out of all the quarterbacks who played at least 8 games. He only has one quarterback one season in his entire career in points per game, and that was all the way back in 2016. I know they've added new weapons and they have good volume, but for Derek Carr, just really looking at his history of production, he hasn't done it except once. And so I think I was talking about this with someone earlier. I think the best case scenario for production is like with Stafford, where he goes to a lot better situation and was QB 11 in points per game, low QB1 numbers with no rushing, I think is what you should expect. Rodgers needed an obscene touchdown rate just to get top 5. Same with Brady, who needed obscene touchdown rate and obscene volume. I don't think that Carr is really on their level as passers, and I don't think he gets there, but
That's fair.
I would chase the upside with Fields.
Yeah, I think if they're being valued the same or even close to it, I'd rather just take Fields, even if it takes a plus from Carr, because you are taking the upside shot. But in terms of floor, I don't think it's too bad, because when we look at upside or realistic upside, like with Derek Carr, we are looking at like Matt Stafford next season, where you have these good weapons, solid volume, and you can be pretty efficient, which is totally doable for Derek Carr. But in Justin Fields' range of outcomes, we still have guys like Kyler Murray, Robert Griffin III, who were really good. Obviously, RG3 is a bit of an anomaly when we're looking into future outlook. But someone like Justin Fields, like when we look deeper into things, like clean PFF pass grade is one of my favorite metrics for quarterbacks, because you can actually compare quarterbacks with kind of same situations. You don't have to lump the ones that are like Burrow, who's under all this pressure, to someone like who's being protected longer, or however you want to put it. And Justin Fields, in terms of clean PFF pass grade, was on par with like Justin Herbert in year 1. He was second this year behind Mac Jones just by a few. But one thing that kind of startles you and startles everyone, like with the Bears situation, is you do see when you look at clean PFF grade versus their normal, you kind of see a large drop off for Justin Fields, which says the Bears were absolutely terrible at keeping, because he was really good when he was clean. They just couldn't do it at all. But the thing is, when you do look at the Fields like individual talent and you take that situation away, he was actually really good in terms of the smaller metrics you look at. And then like he was an elite prospect for me. And when you look at elite like Konami prospects, the only guys that had a higher carry percentage last year than Justin Fields are Kyler Murray, Robert Griffin III, Lamar Jackson, and Robert Griffin III. Those are the only 4 higher than Justin Fields last year. So you do see kind of that huge upside. And also the thing with Carr, like when you compare the two, is maybe a realistic median outcome for anyone. You could say they're about the same. But even when we look at floor, like think about someone like Jalen Hurts, who wasn't close to the prospect Fields was, at least in terms of the NFL too. Even if Fields isn't good this year, you're still going to have that rushing upside that you like Like Jalen Hurts was not good, but he rushed really high. So he has the same rushing profile that we can expect from Justin Fields. And the thing is, next year, even if Fields isn't the guy you want him to be, especially in this bad situation, if the NFL makes him a backup, that just seems unlikely given how he's a first-round pick. This is only his second season, and it's pretty clear that he's in a bad situation. So I think the floor relative to Carr isn't going to be something that falls out from under you either.
I like that. Didn't completely slap you down, Kev, but maybe put you in your place.
Yeah, I think I just play it for, like I mentioned, short windows and safety. I think that Carr's got a lot safer. I do actually think he's got a lot safer floor because the floor Fields is not a starter or he's benched. It's a new regime, but
it's definitely safer. I agree with you.
Yeah, I agree. It's just that when you're looking for,
you're searching for the upside. Yeah,
you should look for the upside. Yeah,
definitely. And with that, we'll move on to the running back position and talk about Josh Jacobs. Recently, the Raiders have declined his 5th-year option on his contract. So, how are you two approaching Jacobs in Dynasty? Finishes the RB8 in 2020 and RB11 in 2021. He's always been a little bit underrated for me. Is this the offseason that you're looking to move on from Josh Jacobs?
I am, because I don't think going into next year with this 5th-year option being declined, it's going to be a lot more uncertain. And so I think what you can fetch for him certainly declines next year. It's already declined every year since after his rookie season when he didn't become a top 5 running back like everyone wanted. That was always a bit out of the cards, but sometimes people have unreasonable expectations. But he's been a high RB2 in 3 straight seasons, even creeping into the low RB1 conversation once, I think. But overall, it's not difference-making production. It's very replaceable production. And so when I can ship that out before, I think after next year, his role diminishes. Maybe he goes to a new team. Maybe stays with the Raiders, takes in a smaller role as he goes into another contract. But Jacobs isn't the player I'm looking to roster in fantasy because I just think there's no upside. I think you can get a lot cheaper running backs who offer similar production or more production, like a Leonard Fournette, James Conner, Kareem Hunt, for a lot cheaper. Even if they are a bit older, their situations, what their window offers is probably similar, just because Jacobs' contract expiring after this year puts a lot of uncertainty in the situation.
Yeah, I'm kind of with a Kosh there in that, I mean, Josh Jacobs, in terms of everything he looked at, was really not someone sexy to roster in Dynasty, especially given his value the last couple years, where he was valued as this RB1. And even though he finished as a high RB2, it wasn't difference-making production like Kosh says. And I will say, actually, this offseason compared to last, I actually have more Jacob shares. Well, going from like 0 to 1 or 0 to 2 or whatever. But that 9th or 10th round Josh Jacobs, I don't think is a bad move per se, because I think there's a lot of risk that's already baked into his value, like risk that Akash is talking about. But at the same time, when we look at that 10th round or 9th, there's a lot of guys with that risk. I'd have Leonard Fournette, but compared to other guys there, I don't think Josh Jacobs is a bad choice, given he does have a history of a workload, which is something that not a lot of running backs can say. Like, even look at guys like James Conner in Pittsburgh, who aren't all that efficient, but they carried a workload. We still like them when they go to a different situation because they were able to prove that. So that's something that we can say for Josh Jacobs. Another thing we could say is the offense as a whole, with someone like Davante Adams coming in, definitely has realistic upside to be a better offense, which usually leads to more possessions, more red zone trips, which we do know that they like to use Josh Jacobs in the red zone. So it's not something, like Kosh said, it's definitely with no decline or a declined 5th-year option. Even with the RB2 season, we could definitely see the value drop. But I think given where his price is, he's not bad, but it's definitely not someone you just want to go out and buy or anything like that.
Yeah, 8th or 9th round, I definitely feel a lot comfortable doing that, but I've seen him go 5th or 6th round most of the time.
Yeah. And I mean, defenses, when they come up against the Raiders, they're not going to be able to stack the box. They're going to have to respect Davante Adams on the outside and try and double him. So there could be room for Josh Jacobs this season. Kev, I know you're not Jacobs' biggest fan. How are you approaching him at the minute? I presume you don't have much Jacobs in Dynasty.
0 shares, 0 cares for Josh Jacobs. I think it's just because he is valued so low. I don't really know There is the pivots, like you mentioned, like the Fournettes, the corners, etc. It's just one of those where I think his value, it's lower now than it was a couple of seasons ago. Maybe you've missed your window to move off him at a reasonable value. You might end up being stuck with him, to be honest. It's gonna be tough. I've always been low on him. I think new regime as well. We don't know how it's going to look pass game wise. It picked up a little bit more targets last season, but did he do a lot with them? Not really. He's just a guy for me. Like, don't really care about him. Sorry.
You're always a homer, Kev, weren't you? You always team Miles Sanders over Josh Jacobs.
I was, and you know what? Sanders isn't going to hit on the Eagles, so it's a shame because I like Sanders. I think he deserves a shot in a team that's going to use him.
Then just a quick follow up. How are you guys on Zamir White? Do you like Zamir White landing on the Raiders? Do you think he has a realistic shot with possibilities of obviously Josh Jacobs moving on next year?
No.
Quick answer, I like it.
I don't like Zamir White. I mean, I wanted to look into it. I think I know what my findings are going to be, but I don't think we're very good at determining which day 3 running backs are significant. Zamir White was a day 3 running back, which obviously has a horrible hit rate. The one thing I could say for him is that maybe at one point there's an injury ahead of him that maybe gives you a sell window, but when his price is already, what is it right now, like a late second, early third, I don't think that you get meaningful value gains on top of that. And so for Zamir White, it wasn't a very good prospect, and even with Jacobs potentially moving on, I think they would just bring in someone else or draft someone else. I don't think that Zamir White gets a shot at it, and outside of injuries and him just completely taking over and producing out hitting his coverage in terms of where he was as a prospect. So I'm not big on Zamir White. Something also that people warn me about is the injury history for him. I believe he had 2 ACL tears, which is horrible for a career outlook.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same page. I mean, he obviously wasn't a good prospect at all. I mean, good prospects don't go on the day 3 of the NFL draft. But I think what you said is a good point in that Josh Jacobs doesn't have his 5th year option. So like when we're looking at like the 3rd and 4th round of these rookie drafts, and like for me, aside from like some tight end shots where I think there's good tight ends, but aside from the point, like the running back shots in those 3rd, 4th round, I like to diversify because like someone like Zamir White, say you have Zamir White and you just hold him on your roster, and yeah, Josh Jacobs doesn't have his 5th year option, so he's not on the team. Like just look, when Breece Hall, before he was a Jet, it was Michael Carter. Like Michael Carter is a day 3. He was a terrible prospect. He wasn't a good prospect because he went day 3. But because they didn't have that guy in front of him, which like you say with Josh Jacobs is totally possible for the Raiders, and maybe he does something, you're basically just diversifying and maybe grabbing a Zamir White in 1 or 2 of your leagues in the 3rd or 4th round. And then maybe you can flip him for a second next year because Josh Jacobs isn't there. There's no one in front of him for the time being. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be one of those things where hopefully that does happen and you can get out before the draft, because we also know next year there's even more running backs that are good than this last class.
Yeah.
Right now,
Perfectly said.
he's 212. I don't think we're going to get much of him in the 4th round or even 4th round.
Yeah, I've mostly seen him drop to the 3rd round, so perhaps people are even getting more excited about him with the thought about possibly taking a role next year. But with that, we'll move on to the wide receiver position, and no doubt an elite prospect here, Kev.
Yeah, Davante Adams. I mean, he was consistently elite wide receiver with future Hall of Famer Aaron Rodgers. He's moved away from him to Derek Carr. He's 29 years old. He's wide receiver 11 at keep trade cut. So I just want to know what the pivot is from Adams if you want him to remain competitive, but also pick up other assets moving off of Adams. Who would you trade down to, and what sort of deal would you look to do?
I think there's a lot of pivots with Davante Adams. Also, one thing that I think is kind of a more newer thing is we're seeing these wide receivers on the move in terms of getting traded, moving teams a lot quicker, because like before the Diggs and Hopkins year, before that, the statistical analysis or whatever was saying like when a wide receiver switches teams, they lose their target share. They aren't targeted as heavily as they were. which it was a little bit of a smaller sample size, and you didn't quite have studs like Davante Adams, Tyreek Hill, Hopkins, Diggs, like moving every offseason, possibly Debo. So while there is, proof that you could say that target shares will decline when they move to a new team, I think we're also in kind of a new era where we don't 100% know just yet. But I will say we should err on the side of caution that is something that has been proven. And he's also a little bit older. So there's two things right there. And his value in Dynasty is really high. So when you talk about pivots, guys like Deontay Johnson get something on top. Even someone like Terry McLaurin, where you can add a lot more than you can with a Deontay Johnson or something, where he's a little bit younger. Peripherals are also really good. And his situation is new, just like Davante Adams is new in a way because of the new quarterback and what's going on over there. So I think there's a lot of really good pivots off of Davante Adams because, well, it's just we don't. If you're still with Rodgers and you're talking about like a contender, maybe I'm fine with hanging on to him just because of this historic run that he's been on. But that's over. He's old, and we do actually have a little bit of history that says he won't earn the same targets he has been.
Yeah, I think that when I saw that last year, that wide receivers typically decline and pretty much across the board statistically when moving teams, it was definitely something I accepted at face value, but I could be a bit more skeptical about it with a wide receiver like Davante Adams because he's just so good. But the situation in Las Vegas is fine. Probably a higher volume offense than Green Bay, but with lower efficiency. Going from Rodgers to Carr, but you should be fine. If I'm going to pivot, like Ian said, Deontay Johnson second last year in expected points per game. Basically, I love pivoting to Deontay Johnson there everywhere I can. I just love Deontay Johnson, but also Stephon Diggs. They're valued about the same on keep trade cut. Expectations going into next year should probably be about the same for both of them, but more confident in Diggs just because his situation's remaining the same with Josh Allen. In best ball ADP, I think they're 4th and 5th amongst wide receivers. So very similar expectation from redrafters. That's something to be looking at because I think people talk about redraft market being ahead of dynasty market sometimes in expectations for the upcoming season. But I think that Davante Adams with the move to Las Vegas has become someone that I'm more interested in because his price has fallen and he has such a good history of production that, if I can't get one of those pivots, I'm mostly looking to hold because other than that, I don't think there's a ton of good pivots down to pick up more because DJ Moore is a good one. But then once you get into like Michael Pittman, Jameson Williams, Treylon Burks, etc., it's just not as interesting to pivot down unless I'm getting a larger plus. I don't think based on keep your cut, you're getting as much of a plus. Like I would try to get an extra first or get a first and then give a second with that kind of deal. I just don't think you get that done anymore just because people are a lot less certain with Davante Adams in his new situation.
I do like pivoting up to DK Metcalf if that's possible because they're valued around the same. And if it just takes like a 3 for me to pivot to an ultra skilled wide receiver that's down a little bit because of situation. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'd definitely love to do that. Like in terms of range of outcomes, we still see like Julio Jones when it comes to DK Metcalf. Like he's going into his 4th season and there's still this, like he could be one of the greatest wide receivers of this decade or however you want to look at it. And situation or not, I'll move off a 29-year-old, even with how good he is in a new situation, even if it takes a 3 to move up to like a DK Metcalf.
Yeah. Or another pivot is trading into an elite quarterback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that shout with DK Metcalf because I don't think his value is ever going to get any lower than it is right now. And he's never going to have as bad a quarterback situation as he's got right now. It can only get better in time. So as soon as he gets another half-decent quarterback, his value is just going to go back up again. So absolutely love that move. I want to talk about another wide receiver at the Raiders in Hunter Renfrew. Obviously, he had incredible 2021 season, finishes the wide receiver 11. But with Davante Adams coming in to be that presumed target hog, do you think Renfrew still has standalone value? What could be his value for you in Dynasty? Is he someone that you're interested in still, or do you think that now with Adams coming over, that sort of spoils where it will sort of spoils his ceiling?
Yeah, I do think that takes away part of his ceiling. I've talked about this before, but his value really has fallen for someone who was just outside the top 12 wide receivers in points per game last year. He's wide receiver 45 on key trade cuts now. I think that's fine value, honestly, for a guy who has production with the two wide receivers around him. Well, one wide receiver, one tight end around him being almost 30. So it seems fine because he is a good player. But my expectations for him this upcoming season are more like a wide receiver 3. Even if this offense is really good, if this offense, maybe if it doesn't click or something, it is in his range of outcomes that he is maybe a wide receiver 4 just because the other guys probably have higher target shares than him. But the production last year was good that I'd be willing to invest in like wide receiver 45 prices. That's probably around rounds 10, 11, 12 in a startup. That seems fine. Like you're getting him as a wide receiver 4 there.
Yeah, I mean, I think his price is fine, especially for someone who finished as strong as he did. But one thing that like we talk about is when another good receiver, like for Darren Waller's case, just because Davante Adams comes in doesn't mean we should be expecting like Darren Waller's target share to drop off. But that does change a little bit when we talk about being the third option in a passing offense, because that does change a lot. Like guys like Rashad Bateman, it's a tough one because he's a rookie, but you see how it's hard to get them involved. Tyler Boyd, even like he had a good year and he's been proven kind of like Hunter Renfrew, in that he's been a solid producer in terms of like target share, yards per team, pass attempt, like those kind of things. But once you're third in line, it does become really hard to kind of reach that ceiling or even close to that ceiling that he was at. I think this is a PG show, so I won't call it when you get double alpha'd. It was a term that Akash coined, which is what Hunter Renfrew's headed for, but I think his price is fine.
Yeah, I remember looking at it a couple months ago, and I forget what the exact results were, but it's very hard to have 3 receiving options above 20% target share. Have the targets so condensed that you have that, especially when Davante Adams can get up to a 30% target share, and Darren Waller could get up to 25%.
Yeah. And Kev, any interest in Renfrew? Have you got any Renfrew in Dynasty?
I've got a little bit. I think at that price, it's absolutely fine. Both chaps made a great point there. I think the way I'm viewing Renfrew is a little bit sort of on the same wavelength, same thought process as Devontae Smith, where they've added elite wide receivers to the offenses. They've got elite tight ends or potentially elite tight ends there. It's going to affect the wide receiver more than these tight ends. So I think Goddard and Waller, their values have stayed pretty the same on the sign of the elite wide receiver, but it's the now secondary option wide receivers that are going to be impacted the most. I think Devontae Smith's dipped a little bit because of that. I think Renfrew's going to dip as well. The saving grace with Devontae Smith is he's more explosive, so I think he's got a better chance of maintaining his value than a Renfrew. But the flip again is Renfrew's cost at what he is. I think he's fine to be at that price, at that cost.
I would agree with you because I do think Devontae Smith is the second option. I agree with you that being Devontae Smith, the second option in a Hurts offense, is just as bad as the third option in Carr's offense. That's how I'm feeling.
Yeah. I also think Devontae Smith holds his value better because he's younger, and I think people just hate slot receivers, and so that doesn't help Renfrew at all.
Love it. We won't mention the Kev's Eagles. Sorry, we could be here all night talking about those. So we'll move on to a guy that we did briefly mention in that last segment, and over to you, Kev.
Yeah, Darren Waller. Just the fact that he's currently tight end 6 at keep trade cut. There's a couple of guys below him: Goddard, Schultz, Knox. What's your current stance on him? Do you think he's valued correctly at tight end 6? Would you have any of those guys I mentioned above him? Or is he fine?
I think that tight end 6 positionally sounds okay. Although after TJ Blockinson, I think it's a little disrespectful just because we've seen Waller earn like an alpha target share and earn a lot of targets. I think Waller's worst season in the last 3 years beats Hawk's third season by like 2.5% target share, like in a much better passing offense. So like if you have TJ Hawkinson, and I'm assuming he's ahead probably because of age, but the thing with tight ends is there's no real like clear decline like we have with running backs and wide receivers, where like we kind of have this age where like, all right, production starts to go down because of the small sample size of tight ends, and them generally actually breaking out quite a bit older, but not really. So Waller not even being 30 yet actually doesn't really scare me. And if I can take Waller at a discount just because he's 30 over someone like TJ Hawkinson, where I feel much comfortable with Darren Waller, who earns more targets in a better passing offense that'll likely have higher volume with a better quarterback, I'd much love to flip TJ Hawkinson down for Darren Waller.
Yeah, I've gotten a lot of Waller over the last couple months, especially after the Adams trade, just because he's fallen so far. Gotten as low as like late 6 in that tight end premium startup, which feels great because the way I'm viewing tight ends is that there's a couple guys who offer really good production above replacement, and then a lot of players who offer pretty replacement production. Hawkinson falls into the replacement production tier. Even though he is younger, I would prefer just the upside of Waller, just because for getting points above replacement at every position is a must to win championships. So even if Waller is a bit older, I'm willing to take that shot. Same with the Kittles and Kelce's, even though they're almost 30. So scary, but I'm willing to take the age just because they offer that upside of significant wins above replacement, just because there's so many replacement tight ends that your league mates have to start these replacement tight ends every week. And if you can beat them by maybe like 6-7 points every single week in that tight end spot, that's a big advantage.
I think Akash brings up a really good point about replacement level tight end production, because there's a lot of that. And a lot of people kind of see it as like tight ends 1 through 12, when we know historically like tight end 12 and tight end 20, there's really nothing that's going to help you like that we can notice. So those guys that are also in the top 12 that have like at least close enough value to Darren Waller, like guys just like even Schultz, Komet, like guys that we're also seeing in this top 12, even Fant, although I think he's a little bit undervalued at this point, but kind of those guys that round out the top 12, I would be willing to bet that whatever it takes to stack onto them to get Waller is very much worth it, unless you're just in a terrible situation with your roster. Because when we're talking about like value versus production, Waller has to be way up there in terms of producing above what his value says he is. Like in tight end premiums, he should not be going the 5th, 6th round, because he possesses clear tight end 1 upside.
Yeah. And I think people know this too, because on underdog ADP, which is 0.5 PPR with no tight end premium, we're seeing Kelce, Andrews, Pitts, Waller, and Kittle all going within the first 44 picks, and then no tight ends going until the 77th pick, which is where Hawkinson goes on average. And so people know that that these guys will offer significant points above replacement, but they're overrating the mediocrity of youth. So even though Hawkinson is pretty replacement production, they're just looking for, this guy's, what is he, 24? I can get 6+ years of production out of him. When I'm not thinking about it that way, I'm thinking, okay, let me, like you were saying earlier, with thinking about it just a couple years at a time, where I'm just looking for elite production right now, and then maybe I'll figure out my replacement option later on down the line if I need to, if Waller falls off in the next couple of years.
Yeah, and it's not even out of the question that when you look at TJ Hawkinson 6-7 years till he's 31 and Darren Waller's 1, that they could have the same amount of meaningful production seasons. Like, yeah, maybe you get that production for 7 years, but it's right. Like we're looking
and also
at
the time you have to wait for each consecutive year, just not worth it.
Yeah.
Agreed. Me and Kev were in a startup recently. I managed to take Derek Carr as my quarterback 2 after a big quarterback run. But then I went and took Darren Waller in the middle of the 7th round, which felt pretty good to stack him up, and I haven't got to worry about my tight end position anymore. So here's that. And with that, we'll move on to the Chargers and an offense that I absolutely love. We'll start with Justin Herbert. I've now moved Justin Herbert ahead of Patrick Mahomes in dynasties as my quarterback 2. Are you as high as I am on Herbert? And is there a way that he can take that next level and displace Josh Allen as the dynasty quarterback 1 and finish quarterback 1 overall?
I don't think I'm that high on him, but you seem pretty high on him. Mahomes just has a better history of production. It's not like Herbert's been bad. It's just Mahomes has been doing it for longer. I'm more confident in him. I said the other day that Mahomes is the best quarterback to ever play football, and I got a lot of hate for it, even though he is. Purely from a statistical perspective, like there's no one has been as good as Patrick Mahomes through their first 4 years in the NFL.
Yeah, I'm on the same side as Akash here. Like, I guess I could see some of the case for ranking Herbert above Mahomes, but it's not beneficial, I would say, because especially when you're looking at those first couple picks, like we know they're going top 3, top 4 in a startup. Like when you're looking at those guys, throw upside out the window because they're all pretty much same level upside. Like they could all break fantasy football. So we should look at floor a little bit. And someone like Patrick Mahomes, like when we talk about top 5 QB season, we're talking about like 24 plus points per game. And Patrick Mahomes has that in every single season he started. So 4 years, 24 plus points per game seasons. Like, yeah, he's lost Tyreek Hill, but we're also talking about the greatest start and the most historical start to a quarterback's career, and at least fantasy wise as well, in my lifetime.
Yeah, and as for Josh Allen, I don't think that Herbert overtakes Josh Allen simply because Josh Allen offers double the production on the ground, and they're both fairly good passers. I'd expect similar passing production, but Allen will probably be over him on the ground for quite a while. I think we're pretty bad at predicting when rushing declines because we don't have a lot of high volume rushers, but Josh Allen over the last couple seasons has 6.6 and 5.6 points per game on the ground, whereas Herbert has 2.6 and 3.6. It's just not the same level.
You do bring up a good point about us not knowing when rushing declines for quarterbacks, because like someone like
this is why Lamar Jackson's my QB3 over Herbert.
Definitely. And like someone like Cam Newton, like I just point this out because it is pretty crazy. We know him as his prolific rusher, and his second best rushing season in terms of rushing points per game came in his 9th or 10th season.
Was that with New England?
Yeah. Or wait, no. I'm not 100% sure on that. It might be with New England, but I know that
15 touchdowns on the ground or something.
Yeah.
Or 10,
his
it was crazy.
Second best rushing season was way later in his career.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Kev, you're a big Herbert guy. I think he's your quarterback too as well in Dynasty. How are you comparing him with Mahomes at the minute?
I mean, first of all, I'll just say that, yeah, Herbert to Allen, it's not that's probably not a debate for me. I think it is Josh Allen, just the fact he's been QB1 the last two seasons. He's got that rush upside, which Herbert doesn't have. But yeah, I have got Herbert above Mahomes, and I think if you look at the stats to their careers, their first 35 games, Mahomes is slightly ahead by 0.2 points, something like that, in points per game. I think as well, Mahomes, he had a really nice start to his career when you look at who was drafted with. He got to sit a season, he got a full training camp, a pre-season. Then he got his full second season. He got a bit of his third and his fourth season. That were his first 35 games over that span. Justin Herbert came in, middle of a pandemic, no preseason, no training camp. Wasn't meant to start week 2. It did because of Dr. Nick from The Simpsons on the Chargers staff. And then he's gone through. He's basically had his 35 games in his first 2 seasons. So yeah, I'm not calling him Mahomes, but he's pretty much equal Mahomes in his first 35 games in a lot tougher situation for me. So yeah, I agree he's not as talented as a passer, but fantasy-wise, I think he deserves to be in that conversation between very, very close between him and Mahomes.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And I did say how Mahomes had 24 plus points per game seasons in his first 4 seasons starting. I mean, Herbert's done that in his first 2. So it's not, wow. We're just picking between.
Yeah, we're splitting hairs here.
Yeah. They both basically have this. Yeah, they have the same kind of rushing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think actually in career average passing points per game, Herbert's second to Mahomes.
Wow.
Yeah. Out of everyone.
Great stat. That's a great stat. We're both. Yeah. Yeah. We'll move on to the running back position and another really interesting guy. So over to you, Kev.
Yeah, it's just more guys that we love. Austin Eckler finished running back 2 this season. 26-year-old now, and just want to know, like, if you're looking to move off him to a younger running back, or do you value his output versus the value? Is there an easy pivot you see?
I would like to pivot off Austin Eckler. especially like when you see kind of these late career blowups. It kind of can scare you for a little bit. And when you look at like a little bit deeper into his profile, like the last 3 years, like who we knew Austin Eckler as was this 30% carry guy. That's who he was. And he was someone who caught a lot of passes. That's why we liked him. And last year it jumped to above 50%, and he was still like the same guy in the air that we like him to be. So yeah, I mean, it's encouraging, but I also don't think it's totally out of the question to see like a solid step back. But again, we're looking at a guy who catches a lot of passes in a high volume, good passing offense. So the production you're going to get, we should expect to be about the same, because we talk about carry percentage. It matters because, yeah, he can help his ceiling, but it doesn't matter too much because he's not exactly the one that took the red zone work in like a high number of cases. Wait, no, I have the wrong sheet here. He did take a decent amount, but that's something he's not done in the last few years. Sorry to mess that up.
All good.
Yeah, until this last year, he was never really using the red zone as much, and his touchdowns absolutely skyrocketed. But I do expect him to still be productive. As for pivots, like some pivots, like Alvin Kamara, I'd be fine doing that pivot because you can get a good plus. There is some uncertainty with Alvin Kamara's legal situation, which I'm not really going to discuss because I don't know a lot of facts on it because that's not my area of expertise. But what I do know is that when he plays, he's really, really good at scoring fantasy points in a similar vein to Austin Eckler, but you can get a good plus on top of that, as well as Saquon Barkley, who I expect to bounce back and be a workhorse again, as well as a fantastic receiver. I think that better numbers than Austin Eckler is well within Saquon Barkley's range of outcomes, and he's younger. Probably gets more in the rushing department and similar in the receiving department, even if the offense isn't as good. Probably just by sheer volume could score more points.
Yeah,
and I think in terms of realistic median between Eckler and Saquon, we should definitely give it to Eckler just because he catches a lot of passes in a good high passing volume offense. But someone like Saquon, when we're talking about upside, does have the higher upside. Obviously, the offense isn't the same, but he's someone who's actually proven that he can touch like 20% target shares. Like he has done that, as well as something that Eckler doesn't work. He can be the legitimate bell cow. So, yeah, the median outcome definitely would favor Eckler. But when you're looking at the plus you can get going from Eckler to Saquon, and they both have like a very solid amount of risk, especially being running backs as is, older ones. Yeah, the plus is enough to make that totally worth it.
Just a really quick question. I'll mention the rookie Isaiah Spiller. Did you like Isaiah Spiller coming into the process, and do you think it was a good landing spot for him?
I liked him before he was a 4th rounder.
Yeah.
I was talking to someone on Twitter about how bad 4th round is, and they said that he was really close to being a 3rd rounder, and I wanted to check to see if that meant anything. And it really didn't. I could pull up the names, but it's just a bunch of bad players, as well as Devonta Freeman, if you want to cling to that single hit. But no, I don't think that, because like similar to Zamir White, where they're a day 3 running back, the odds of them being very productive aren't very high, and Spiller's going a lot higher than White. No, not a lot higher. It's late second versus mid second. So the value gains that you can get in return probably aren't as high just because the investment cost is a lot higher. But there's a lot of bad day 3 running backs who are so close to round 3, but it doesn't mean much to me, and I'm just not viewing him in that light. So he's just another backup to me.
I'm realizing you said Zamir White had like a 212 ADP or something like that. So he's in the 2nd round as a day 3 guy, and he's not even the highest ADP for a day 3. It's kind of sad.
Spiller's going in the mid second is crazy, and I think Algier might be going in a similar. Yeah, Algier is going higher too, and Dameon Pierce. So people really like bad running backs. Apparently, they did it last year with Michael Carter, and they didn't learn.
Yeah.
Loving this Michael Carter shade. Our coach Matt, he was a massive Michael Carter truther until
they kind of all jumped ship after the NFL draft. Crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I'm in the same vein. Isaiah Spiller is someone who Yeah, it was a tough fall. I mean, coming into the offseason, I track future grades with some I started doing last year. And Isaiah Spiller was an elite back along with Breece Hall last year. And basically this last season where his production profile didn't get any better going from a sophomore to junior and actually kind of took a little bit of a step back was kind of the first flag, and he was just hanging on to elite status. And then coming in, we see he doesn't perform at the combine well at all, which obviously absolutely obliterated the draft stock. So he did go from someone that I was liking to now someone that is massively overdrafted. I wouldn't touch Isaiah Spiller until like mid round 3, and he's going a full round above that. Like day 3 running backs, no matter what profile they had coming in, just they aren't good.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah,
love this.
It's easy to write off all of them, and you'll be right 90% of the time.
Yeah, exactly. We better quickly move on to someone that we do like. Keenan Allen. He's spent the last 5 seasons as a top 14 wide receiver. He's averaging nearly 1,200 yards and 6 touchdowns. So just what are you guys doing with him this offseason? Are you buying him? Are you selling him? Or are you holding him?
I like Keenan Allen. Kind of same reason of Eckler, except the wide receiver gets an alpha target share in a high volume offense that's very efficient with Justin Herbert. So yeah, I like him. I would say the struggle is he's kind of in that category for me, sort of with like DeAndre Hopkins, Michael Thomas, and Devontae Adams, or not Devontae Adams. I'm missing one where they're kind of in the back half of their career, but are still elite producers. Mike Evans, that's the other one. So those 4 where you're still going to get that elite production most likely until you don't. That's kind of the thing with Keenan Allen. But the issue I have with kind of getting him on my team is that when we do look at those 4 guys, Keenan Allen, aside from just the last week, was the highest ranked out of all 4 of them, and now is behind Mike Evans. But he's still a decent ways above Hopkins and Michael Thomas. And when it comes to those guys, for the most part, I usually just want the cheapest guy because we're looking for producers like that who have been elite every time they've stepped the field, and age is kind of the issue. Although with Thomas, there's the injury too. But when we talk about that,
for Hopkins
and the suspension for Hopkins, but when we talk about that, we're just looking for that elite perennial production where it's way cheaper because of age. And Keenan Allen does fall into that. He's just not the cheapest stuff. I probably wish I had more of him, but tough.
Yeah, he's within those other receivers you mentioned. Yeah, it does make sense that he could be a bit lower. But as far as amongst all wide receivers, I do like him just because you can pivot off of some other younger players who probably don't produce the same. Like, even though they're younger, I would just take at some point you just got to take the elite older production, like trading a late first or some of these players drafted in the late first, like a Christian Watson for Keenan Allen, and just rolling with the production.
I think Keenan Allen just had his birthday, because I remember telling Akash on the podcast, I said when Keenan Allen's birthday was coming up, I said, okay, he's about to touch the 3-0 number. And people in Dynasty, when they see that big 3 in front of the age, it's all over. And about a week after his birthday, I think we saw him fall and keep track cut along with the rookies coming in, but he did fall like.
That's right. His birthday was April 27th.
And he fell a little bit.
Yep. This is advanced analysis that you have. Birthday analysis.
It's just what we expect in Dynasty now. When you see running back when you look at his age, if he's 26, nobody wants to touch him. If it's a wide receiver and they're 30 years old, nobody wants to touch them. So we know what to expect nowadays. Kev, we'll talk about
so predictable.
Kev, we'll talk about another wide receiver on the Chargers in Big Mike.
Yeah, I'll just mention about Keenan Allen, wide receiver 34 keep trade cut. That seems pretty fine price to pay. The other thing is a Taurus, so is that good? Is that bad? We don't know. We'll have to start doing star sign analysis as well to another advanced metric as to
pick them off my draft board.
I think part of the thing I forgot to mention with those receivers is because of that value being low and the level of production. Once you buy Keenan Allen, say you buy Keenan Allen at this price, you're holding that production till he retires. Like that is going to stay on your team because you're not going to sell him later. His price right now, you already bought because you wanted the production, knowing that this was the case. So yeah, he's he's to that point now where you probably get elite production, 1, maybe 2 more years, but he's a hold until he retires kind of guy.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And that's another kind of pivot from a Javontae Adams, just getting another older guy who has seen their value fall a little bit, like the Evans, Keenan, Michael Thomas, and Hopkins, because you can get a significant addition onto that, and then you can maintain some semblance of the production. The production, I don't think it has the same ceiling or it reaches the same level. Like if I'm doing redraft rankings, I'm taking Javontae Adams over all of them, but I don't think the hit is as significant as the additional assets you can get on top of it.
You might be able to get a 23-1 on top of that.
I think you should be,
yeah.
Would
you be completely shocked if Keenan Allen outproduced Javontae Adams this year, first year in the new offense?
Not at
I
all.
wouldn't be completely
shocked. No, it's definitely possible.
Yeah,
agreed. So, we all agree on something. Come on.
The only thing we agree on is that nothing is ever certain.
Love that. So we'll keep it wide receiver. Big Mike Williams. He had his mini breakout this last season. He's finishing as wide receiver, as a wide receiver 1, wide receiver 12 overall. Just want to know what your expectations would be over the next 3 years tied to Herbert. What's a realistic sort of outcome over the next 3 years? Do you think he's a wide receiver 2 now? Is he a bit lower? Take it away.
Yeah, he has a pretty wide range of outcomes, I think, because we saw this last year of production, but the last year of production should just only update what you thought before. You shouldn't completely abandon your priors. And we talked about Mike Williams on the podcast, and we labeled it as something like Bayesian thinking, where you just update what you think. And so Mike Williams has 4 years of not being fantasy relevant, and then has a fantasy relevant season in his 5th season. Not to say that it's not that he is a locked and loaded wide receiver 1 now or wide receiver 2 now. He's 14th in points per game, and this is his first time ever being top 36. So it's definitely possible that he goes back to being a wide receiver 3 or worse, just because of that's what he's been his entire career. But it is definitely possible that this sticks around. This role sticks around, because I do think there's a role change. His ADOT went down, and his expected points per game went up quite a bit. From I think his average before that was around 10 expected points per game every year before that, and then this last year was 14. So that's a big jump. It definitely matters. That's something that also comes with the offense being really high volume this last year. And I don't expect Herbert to suddenly become a low volume quarterback, but they definitely had a really high octane offense last year.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Williams was definitely boosted by the situation. It's one of the best fantasy situations for any receiver / receiving running back to be in. Well, actually, really any player. You want any player in a good offense. But to the point that you were saying, like Mike Williams, his ADOT did a complete bell curve from his rookie year. It was his lowest in the same exact ADOT that he had his rookie year. I believe it was 12, which is right on kind of the cusp we're looking for, because the thing with Mike Williams was that he's like Henry Ruggs, for example, where they had that super high ADOT that makes it really hard to get a lot of targets because you're working so far down the field, which is something that we saw when Mike Williams at the beginning of the season, his ADOT was down his first 3-4 games. I think all of them were below 12 or around that, which is something that wasn't true for Mike Williams in the past. So there started this, and in response, his target share went up along with his ADOT dropping, which does make sense. Once you work closer to the line of scrimmage, you're not some predominantly deep threat, you're likely to earn more targets. So that does make sense. The part that scared me is basically after that, and I was kind of getting on board that we might be seeing a role change, which is exactly what we need for Mike Williams, is that we did see it climb back up as the season went on. But what we care about is the 16-game sample where it was his lowest. So I think there's definitely some hope in a really good offense where he's proven that he can be productive. So I do think there's hope, but I just feel
I want to be the guy that's just like Mike Williams, the one-hit wonder, sell him now. But objectively, it is certainly possible that he repeats.
Yeah, it was a bit of an early star of my Scott Fishbowl team last year. I took Mike Williams really quite late on, and he just hit the first half of the season. He was fantastic. So I got some love for Big Mike anyway.
I had this tweet back in September where I was dogging all the Mike Williams truthers who were expecting a 5th-year breakout. I'm like, why are you expecting a 5th-year breakout? This is like, why is he? I think I said like, so Hunter Henry left. He had a 16% target share. Mike Williams had a 16% target share last year. So now Mike Williams have a 32% target share because that's how math works. And then I commented under that, why is Laviska Shenault going behind Mike Williams in underdog drafts? I think I just barely missed on that one.
Oh, I love it. We'll finish up at the tight end position. We'll briefly mention Gerald Everett. We've seen flashes from Gerald Everett in the past, but he's never properly broke out. At this point, should we just not expect too much from Gerald Everett? And is he someone that you're interested now he's tied to Justin Herbert as a quarterback?
I'll be the first to say it. Yeah, I am. He's free too. So,
yeah.
But one thing that I've kind of theorized and I've talked with Kosh a decent amount is when we're taking like tight end shots. So we know the first few tight ends are really the only meaningful production guys you're going to get for the most part in terms of like trusting their production and their production profiles and all that stuff. But we do get a lot of like breakout random 1-year tight ends. But a lot of those things that those tight ends have in common is being attached to a really good offense or a really good quarterback. So like when you see Robert Tonyan, like completely supported by this crazy high TD share TD share because of Aaron Rodgers. He's a part of a really efficient, good offense who predominantly made his points through touchdowns. Then we have guys like Dawson Knox, another guy. Compared to his production, compared to his target share, was pretty impressive because of all those touchdowns he was getting in a high volume, really efficient offense. So guys this year that are like free, that I'm actually really liking to take the shot at is like Gerald Everett, because again, you're attached to that Herbert offense and he's free and he's a tight end when we know there's really none that have meaningful production. Another guy like Cameron Brate, like going to be a part of the Brady offense, and maybe there's no Gronk there either. Like those are the kind of the late round tight end guys, like Everett being one of them that I'm liking taking that shot at.
Yeah. I think my extent to Gerald Everett analysis is, shit, man, he's got Herbert. Maybe catches a touchdown in his bye week. I don't know. That's about it. That's the only reason I'm looking at him. Maybe catch a touchdown if I need him to.
Yeah. Kev, you've always been quite a Gerald Everett fan in the past. Are you loving his landing spot now, or is it just too late for you with Gerald Everett?
Yeah, what a nightmare. It was my tight end sleeper, I think, last season, but that went terrifically bad. But yeah, I think it's a great offense to be tied to. It's a cheap way of getting exposure to a great offense. But yeah, my expectations aren't too high. If I've got him on a roster, I'm going to keep him and just see if he can gain a bit of value and I can pivot off. I don't think he's ever going to be top 6 tight end. So with that respect, he's never going to be a guy I'm looking to start every week.
Yeah, honestly, he's probably the 4th option behind Eckler, but it's okay because maybe he catches a touchdown every now and then.
Yeah, we love it. I love the Chargers offense. If I wasn't a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, I'd love to pivot and be a LA Chargers fan because it's just such a fun team to watch. But yeah, that takes us to the end of the show. So thank you for coming on. You've been fantastic guests. We're both big fans of your work, Ian. That is an amazing background you've got there. It's just turned midnight in the UK, so it's pitch black here, and you're sitting in the sunshine with clear blue skies. It's fantastic.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you so much for having us on. It was a ton of fun.
So do you guys just want to plug where people can find you and anything that you're up to right now?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter, YZR_fantasy. I don't do anything there except post random stuff I find in my spreadsheet. So if you like that, come drop a follow.
And then you can find me on Twitter at dynasty_am. You can find both of us in the Bulletproof Patreon. I know Kev's in there. See him and get him out. And yeah, we're both in my own Patreon too. So feel free to come by anytime.
Yeah, go sub to Ian's Patreon because it's really good. Yes. Yeah,
do it. Cheers for coming on, guys. Absolutely loved having you on. You've got us through this late hour. So thanks once again.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Well, thank you.
Cheers. Take care.
We're almost there, Ali. We're almost there.
Yeah, it's officially Sunday morning now.
Sunday
Starting
morning.
on Saturday. We're still here on Sunday morning.
We certainly are. We'll bring back the main man.
Thanks for having me back. I was just sat in awe there, just looking at Ian and his background. I mean, how jealous?
Fantastic.
How jealous can one person be of a background? I mean, wow.
Indeed, what a guy. Well, what a bunch of guys actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
That
was a great show.
Legends.
Yeah, and like all the guests we've had on, obviously it's been great. And now we're going to head into the final half of the fourth quarter, I guess you could say, the last division we're going to be covering, moving on to the NFC West. We're here. We've made it the final 2 hours to go, and we're going to kick things off talking about the 49ers and the Cardinals. But to do that, we're going to have to bring on a couple of great guests to come and help us along the way. So without further ado, we're going to introduce Kevin and Jacob, both coming over. Obviously, you know Kevin from the Devy Royale, 1/3 of that group over there, and then Jacob coming in from Triple Play Fantasy. Great to have you both on. How are you both doing?
Doing good. You guys okay? You guys are finishing strong here. It is not easy to do that long of a stream.
I'm looking forward to the before and after pictures because I feel terrible. I probably look terrible, but no, it's been a lot of fun. And yeah, we've got two great guests in you guys coming on and helping us push through for the final 2 hours. You're on for the first of those 2 hours, and yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. Looking forward to it. So we're going to kick things straight off, get right into it. We're going to start with the 49ers. So Ali, I'll hand over to you, and we'll start off with the quarterback position.
Yeah, so we'll talk about Trey Lance, and there's been rumors on social media the last few weeks that the 49ers aren't very happy with Trey Lance's progress. What is your personal concern for Lance? Do you think it's all just a play just to get the most value out of a trade when they finally trade away Jimmy G? Are you still high on Trey Lance for being the starter this season?
Go ahead, Jacob.
So I actually think that John Lynch is a huge dynasty football fan, and he is doing all of us a favor. So we can buy low on Trey Lance right now, because once Trey Lance is named the starter, he's going to pop off for fantasy. So all of you guys out there, buy low now while you can.
Yeah, no, I agree. Look at, the 3 games that he played, he had 2 20-point games for fantasy purposes, and he would have had 27, had a touchdown not get called back in that last game that he played against Houston. What you think of him as a quarterback is whatever, but as a fantasy quarterback, He's really good, and he's going to be good when he gets out there. They're just trying to get something out of Jimmy. I mean, let's be real. Like, they're trying some team out there to come get him, and that's what's going on right now. And I don't know who wants Jimmy G. I wouldn't want Jimmy G.
I think great points. I mean, yeah, it feels like we're kind of still in that window where you could potentially still buy low on Trey Lance. Just having a quick look at where he is on Keep Trade Cut, currently going QB 11. It's interesting. We've spoke about obviously all the rookie quarterbacks from last year that came in and what they did. Obviously, Trey Lance, we didn't quite get to see what could be with Trey Lance, but yeah, he's the one that I think we're all getting super excited about in terms of fantasy, the upside that he's got in rushing the ball, the potential that he can do in throwing the ball as well, the cannon of an arm that he's got, and then tied to that offense. He's the one I think out of all those quarterbacks that we're still really excited about, despite seeing very little from him so far. But Ali, Kev, have you got anything else to add on Trey Lance? As I say, probably the most hyped one out of that class. Ali, I know that you're super high on Trey Lance as well.
Yeah, I'm super high on him. I just think it's a load of bull about that they're not very happy with his progress. I think they're trying to scream to Carolina, come get Jimmy G, give us some capital for Jimmy G. At the end of the day, they paid three first-round picks to go get Trey Lance. Yeah. He's going to be their guy. They're happy with him. He's going to be a safe quarterback for the next couple of years. He's on a fantastic team. It's very rare where the rookie comes in and just lands on a team that's got the stars that the 49ers have got. So he's going to come in with that rushing, with so many great passing weapons. He's going to be absolutely fine. So yeah, I'm still all in on Trey Lance.
Yeah, no concerns for me. The fact that he's played a little, he's played well for fantasy when he's come in. He's held his value despite not playing much. I think if he continues to sit, he'll still hold his value. The fact the 49ers might trade Jimmy G within the NFC should tell you everything you need to know about Jimmy G. They're not scared about him sticking in that conference and doing damage to them if it is true with those trades. But yeah, Trey Lance, soon as he hits field, like Jacob said, he's going to smash. No concerns from that level. And actually, he was my QB3 last year from the rookies. Out of the three Fields, Lawrence, Lance, I've moved him up to QB1. I think he's out of those three. He's got to have moved up just because he's shown well when he's come on the field, whereas Fields and Lawrence, they showed more question marks than anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Although he did have that limited sample size, obviously there was other quarterbacks to start for much longer. But yeah, Trey Lance and Jacob, you kind of hinted at how great he could be in fantasy, but just how great could it be? What do you think his ceiling could be with Trey Lance? Are we talking about a quarterback that could potentially be a QB1, the QB1 in fantasy moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, we saw him get 85 rushing yards in one of his starts last year. So, I mean, like that, I think could be his floor as far as rushing yards go, because Kyle Shanahan, like you guys just said, I mean, he handpicked this guy. He moved mountains to go get Trey Lance. He obviously has a plan for him that fits whatever offensive scheme that he wants to do, on top of all the rushing he wants to do. I mean, so like Trey Lance is going to be tailor-made for this offense. And we have heard that George Kittle loves him, and he has seen a lot of progress from him. So, what George Kittle is saying and what the 49ers camp is somewhat saying, it doesn't agree with each other, So I trust the player in George Kittle over what the 49ers camp is trying to say about Trey Lance, and that Trey Lance has a bunch of potential, has a big arm, and he could thrive in this offense and be as high if he starts from week 1 on. He could definitely be in the conversation for top 5 fantasy quarterback.
Love it. Yeah. Kev, do you agree? The guest Kevin, I'll say.
Yeah,
this is good. We've had this issue when you come on, Kevin. So
I know, and Kev's tired too. This is gonna be fun.
Yeah, anything could happen.
I think I think you're right. I think he's right there. But also, who else are you gonna take in that range? Like if you're in Dynasty, you got Russell around there, Jalen Hurts, who I think has more question marks because Lance is a better prospect than Jalen Hurts is. So he's going to get more time, in my opinion, especially with what's going on. You have Stafford there, older, 34 compared to Lance being 22. Yeah, it's a risk, but it's a small one. Him being 22 and with the upside that you have. Like, I think that's how you win leagues. Like, if you want to get 7th, take these other guys around there and just kind of go for that middling pack. Go for Lance and just go for it. And now you're going to have a high upside guy. Because imagine what you can draft in the first round. Because you can probably draft Lance in the second round-ish. Mm-hmm. So get him with a good, whether running back 1, or you get him with like Jefferson or Chase or any of those guys. And now you have a real upside of that position. I think that's how you win leagues.
Yeah. No, I fully agree. Like I said, we spoke about guys like Trevor Lawrence and saying, well, quarterbacks like that, why are you not taking the proven commodity in somebody like Stafford? But when it comes to Trey Lance, this is a whole different kind of quarterback. And obviously with fantasy, that rushing upside that we know he has. And then, as I say, that cannon of an arm as well. He's the one that you can get super excited about. And the one that I'm taking the shot on if I'm looking for that upside, Trey Lance has got that. And yeah, it could be an absolute stud in fantasy. But with that, Kev, we're going to now move on to the running back position.
Me? Yeah, I'm only kidding. I know it's me. So yeah, Elijah Mitchell, he's the main running back if we're not counting Debo. But last year he crushed it, running back 15 and 5 points per game. Obviously, we've had a competition in Tyrion Davis-Price, better draft capital received than Elijah Mitchell, but so did Trey Sermon. The 49ers always seem to add competition every year, so maybe it's not a worry they've added this guy, but what are your thoughts on Mitchell as a prospect? Do you think he's going to lose his job as a day 3 running back in the near future, or is he a value at running back 24?
Is this Dynasty, or are you talking just straight up this year?
Dynasty, yeah.
See, this is weird for me because I like Mitchell, and he's not a bad value. He's the one guy at running back 24 where I'm like, wow, the Dynasty community is not stupid. Like, that's probably properly where he should be because there's a lot of risk there. I love Davis-Price. I think Davis-Price is the guy that you want in Dynasty. And I think that he'll go in there because Shanahan likes him. And I just read a 4for4 article about him. And the thing that Davis-Price does well, he averaged 6 broken tackles per 100 attempts in college. That was 29th in the country last year. He averaged 5 missed tackles per 100 attempts. And so he created 2.4 yards after contact. And that's really good. especially in that offense that Shanahan's going to run. And I think that Elijah, even though he was good at times last year, I know he got banged up a little bit. There was times where, hey, you saw some other guys get carries there. I think that Davis Price is the guy long-term because of that draft capital. And I do think that you could he's cheaper right now. Like, he's really cheap. And so, but with that said, it's just a headache. I hate their backfield. So, like, I know Elijah's going to get right at the beginning, but I think Davis Price can come in there. I think he can win some leagues.
Yeah. Jacob, do you agree with that?
I am with Kevin in that 49ers backfield is going to be a headache every single year. There is never going to be a constant bell cow for as long as Kyle Shanahan is there. And Kyle Shanahan probably has job security for like 10 plus years there. So
he shouldn't, but that's a different show. That's a different show.
Right. Yes. So I had Elijah Mitchell last year in Dynasty. I waited until his value was at its peak, and I traded him for a first-round pick because I knew that next year, I don't know, Trey Sermon could actually be good. I don't know. Like, I know that we've only seen a plodding running back, and then he got hurt, but he has high draft capital himself, so there's Trey Sermon, there's Jeff Wilson, he's still there. And then there's what Kevin said, the new draft pick, the new toy, in TDP. So, it's going to be a question mark all year. Now, I would bet good money that Elijah Mitchell is going to lead this backfield and is going to be the 15 plus touch guy, at least to start the season. And as long as he's healthy, with Price getting, 5 to 8 carries along with Elijah Mitchell, as long as everyone's healthy. But when have we seen the 49ers backfield completely healthy? So yeah, it's just a complete question mark. We always compare the 49ers backfield to the Patriots backfield. Like, you don't want any part of that, especially in redraft. Now in Dynasty, there are favorable guys, but I'm looking to trade Elijah Mitchell ASAP if you can, because I agree with Kevin. I would rather have Price.
Now, I think you made a great point about it being a bit of a headache of a backfield, not just because you don't know which is going to be the lead guy, but just because it's so great that the fantasy production that we get from this backfield is amazing. So you want to find that guy, but trying to find that guy is really tough when it comes to this offense and Kyle Shanahan. And I feel like it's kind of just a level playing field every year when the season starts. Kyle Shanahan, he doesn't care where you were selected, what draft capital you've got beforehand. He just wants the guy that produced. Obviously, last year, Elijah Mitchell did that, stepped in, easily outproduced Trey Sermon, and he was the lead back. Now they brought in another guy, maybe trying to, like Kev mentioned, to make amends for the mistake that they potentially made last year in taking Trey Sermon and getting somebody like Davis Price. So, yeah, I definitely think it's interesting that they've gone out and selected this guy in day 2 of the NFL draft. And to be honest, I think I agree with what both of you guys said. We see players like Elijah Mitchell. Why he was obviously fantastic last year. These guys come and go in fantasy. You see it every year. Doesn't really have that strong draft capital, and I was to say this backfield with it being so confusing. So many players come and go. It's tough for me to have any real strong feeling towards Elijah Mitchell, despite the fact he was fantastic last year. Ali, Kev, have you got anything else to add on this backfield?
Yeah, just that Davis Price is just an easy smash in the third round of rookie drafts. I've been taking him everywhere in that position just because it's start throw territory. So I'm just happy just to roster him and just see how it plays out. And then I do like the fact that you're taking Elijah Mitchell as your running back 2, possibly even running back 3. You're not having to pay top 12, 16, even top 20 running back prices for Mitchell. So I'm very happy. I think running back 24 is about perfect for his rally right now.
Yeah, day 3 running backs, they're always at risk. Just go back to TDP, I'm going to call him. Is that right? Yeah, that's right. I've not got any of them yet, so I'm pretty sad because he's been bigged up by both of our amazing guests. So, I've got him running back 8. I'll probably have to move up to 6 just to make sure that I do get more of him. So yeah, a little bit sad about that, but yeah, Mitchell, I think running back 24, if you like him, it's a fair price to pay. Going around guys like Zeke Elliott, Aaron Jones, if you do believe in him, crack on. But I had a lot of shares of Elijah Mitchell. I know we all did, and I've moved off most of them. even before his price was dropped this low. It's one of the few dynasty moves I've made that have been pretty good.
Nice.
I think I was in the same boat, to be honest. I remember moving him at peak value for Ezekiel Elliott in 2023 second. And while people are down on Ezekiel Elliott, to be honest, I feel more confident in Zeke in the long term in the next couple of years than I do Elijah Mitchell, to be honest. So, a guy that you picked up for basically nothing last year, and hopefully being able to cash in on that bump in value. But we'll move on now to the wide receiver position, or is it even the wide receiver position? Who knows with this guy? It's Deebo Samuel. Obviously, a lot of talk about is he going to stay with the 49ers? Is he going to leave? It now looks like he's potentially staying with the 49ers, but I'm interested to know just how concerned are you guys with his 2022 production anyway, just with the comments that have came out that he doesn't really want to be utilized in the way that he was last season. Are you concerned about those kind of comments?
I'm terrified, Matt. I am terrified of Deebo Samuel's usage because it's pretty unsustainable what he did, right? Like, I don't know if they're not going to rush, they're not going to run the ball with him. I mean, if you look at it, he had 365 rushing yards, 8 rushing touchdowns. I mean, realistically, that's going to get cut pretty heavily. So what is he as a wide receiver? Because the best season he's had is when this hybrid role where we saw him. So if he's not going to play in this hybrid role, then what are we looking at in terms of like fantasy value? I will say though, like, based on how low his value was last season because of the injury concern and all that, you're still not selling very badly. Like, you're not going bad on your investment on your portfolio, as the kids would say. But like, I think that I am concerned with it. Like, I don't. What is he going to be? We don't know what Lance is with him either. So as we talked about with Lance, maybe Lance's upside from the rushing, which we love, is going to hurt him because this is how it's going to get replaced too. Like, I'm very concerned. I'm actually looking to sell Deebo. Like, I'm currently in negotiations with another guy that you guys know, Nick P2W. He's a tool, but I'm trying to get trying to get Deebo off my roster to him right now. So I'm hoping that works. But I'm concerned about it. I really am.
What's up, Nick? I love that shout out, man. So before he started to rush, he was actually still like a top 5 wide receiver in fantasy. Like, he was killing it. And he surpassed all of our expectations, even though Kevin and I were saying he's such a value. He was going in the 8th and 9th round, at least in redraft leagues. You know, he was such a value. It's because of that injury concern, but he put all those concerns to rest. You know, like all season, he was healthy and he was a top 5 wideout even before all of those rushing yards. Now, those rushing yards definitely vaulted him up, and you hate to see him lose that because those are guaranteed touches that you want your wide receiver to get because they are so dependent on the quarterback giving him the ball, you know? So, you know, you definitely would prefer that. But I'm not concerned if Deebo does stay healthy, which I still am a little bit, you know, like hesitant to draft him early in redraft. But I agree with Kevin. Like, if I have him in Dynasty and someone's willing to offer like a Godfather deal for him because he's still young and he's still in an incredible offense, then I am going to sell for future assets. Absolutely. You know, and people who can contribute right away. So I am not too worried about Deebo if he can stay healthy. But if I had him, I would look to sell him ASAP.
No, yeah, absolutely. I just had a quick look at Keep Trade Cut, his current value, wide receiver 8. I fully agree with both of what you guys said. I'm concerned as well with Deebo, not just with him himself, but obviously that QB situation over there. We don't really know what it's going to look like with Trey Lance there. We know that he's a guy that can run the ball plenty. Is this offense now going to shift even more so towards a run heavy offense, I guess? So if Deebo's not a part of that running scheme, then yeah, I think there's definitely some reason to be alarmed. And if he's still going at that wide receiver 8 price, then yeah, there's plenty of wide receivers around that range that I'm more happy to move on to in better situations, in better offense in terms of what they're doing in throwing the ball. So yeah, both made great points there. Kev, I assume that you're in a similar range of thinking. I know that you wasn't overly high on Deebo pre this season. Obviously had a great year, but yeah, are you feeling the same way?
I mean, first of all, we've got to give you a bit of a shout, Matt, because before last season you said that Deebo Samuel's amazing and Brandon Ayuk stinks and Deebo's going to crush
something
it,
along those lines. Yeah, that sounded a little bit better than what I said it as.
I might be tweaking it slightly, but it was along those lines, and you nailed it with Deebo over Ayuk. I bought into Debo as well. I bought him on 2 teams mid-season where they were my biggest contenders, and he smashed it for those teams, but unfortunately both those teams lost in a final. So now I've got him on those rosters, and I'm thinking, how do I move off him? Because I'm very worried. Wide receiver 8, if he's used purely as a wide receiver, and Trey Lance comes in, and it does become a more run-heavy offense, because it will. It's going to be really tricky. Well, basically, he's got no chance of being wide receiver 1 in my eyes if he's a wide receiver purely in a Trey Lance offense. That's just me.
No, that's fair enough. And you just spoke about the other wide receiver over there with the 49ers. So, Ali, we'll hand it over to you to talk a little bit about Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah, now that I'm back, Brandon Ayuk, he's had 2 years in the system, 2 wide receiver 35 finishes. So just assess where you are with Brandon Ayuk right now in Dynasty, because I am finding it pretty hard to get an exact ranking for him right now in Dynasty.
Go ahead, Jacob. I'm going to look and see where I have him because I forgot to look.
Yeah. So I'm looking to buy low on him just because I trust that Shanahan offense, and Brandon Ayuk's rookie year was just so electric. Now, I know that was because Samuel was injured, but he has talent. And it got off to such a weird start last season with Ayuk battling hamstring injuries right before week 1, and then he doesn't play a snap or plays like 1 or 2 snaps in week 1. Week 2 is the same, and then he just doesn't do much. Like it was such a weird situation that I felt like his hamstring issues and held him back. And then like Kyle Shanahan made like some offhand comments being like, "You got to work your tail off. You gotta earn it." Like something like super weird that put Ayuk in somewhat of a bad light. So it was such a weird start to the year. So hopefully he's working his butt off right now and proving himself to Shanahan. And hopefully he doesn't have any hamstring injuries, because Kyle Shanahan doesn't mess with injuries, except if it's your running backs, which is weird because Elijah Mitchell played with a shoulder stinger like all year. But it's a weird situation, but I would float like, if you haven't done your dynasty drafts, I would float like, a second round pick if it's like a middle to late round, just to see if they will bite. Like I'm not offering like a first to him because I'm not taking that risk, but I would do a buy low second round pick for him.
Yeah, I feel like I'm like I was last year, where I'd rather have Debo because his ADP was way better than it was with Ayuk. Right. And now this year, I'd rather have Ayuk because Debo's is way too valued high. I think that's kind of how I have him. And I just looked at my rankings on Football Guys. And I'm the highest of him out of everybody there. So that means I'm right. So I have him at wide receiver 30 right now. So he's consensus wide receiver 40 for the website. And then I have him at 30. So I like him pretty good. I mean, as a wide receiver, like a low end wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, like something like that. I think that he could have value. But after the guys going after him, even on the website, or keeps trade cutting stuff, like I'll take him over Claypool, who I think is overrated. Yes. He's right there around there. Hunter Renfrew, with all those targets now just going to be dispersed. I'm not buying that. Christian Kirk, why would you draft Christian Kirk? So when you're looking at these guys, I think Ayuk is a good value right now. Tyler Lockett's just ahead of him based on these rankings. And, they just came out with Geno Smith. That's disgusting, right? Like I'll buy Ayuk based on value and based on price. And especially if Debo gets moved, now we're really talking about Ayuk. He's going to be the guy. So I think right now is very good value for him. I think he's okay. I don't think he's a wide receiver 1 though. So I do think that people were thinking that going into last season. They got burned a little bit. If I can get him as a low end wide receiver 2, I'm happy on my dynasty teams.
Yeah. No, Kevin, I'll vouch. You're definitely a smart guy. I've got him right there, wide receiver 29 in my rankings. So I'm right there with you, Kevin, in terms of Ayuk. Well, there's definitely question marks. We've just mentioned it with Debo, obviously with the quarterback play with Trey Lance. We still don't really know what we've got in terms of quarterback and how this entire offense is going to play out in terms of how much they're going to throw the ball, how much they're going to run the ball. But yeah, Brandon Ayuk. Kev, you mentioned that I bigged up Debo, but at the same time, as a rookie, I really liked Ayuk as well. So 2 players here that are really interesting with the 49ers. And like Kevin just touched upon, if Debo was to leave, then Ayuk steps in as that wide receiver one. Obviously, there's another guy that we're going to move on and talk about in a quick second. But before we move on to that tight end, Ali, Kev, have you got anything on Brandon Ayuk? Obviously, a guy that maybe is being a little bit underrated at the moment.
Yeah, I've got him wide receiver 31 in my rankings, so pretty excited to have him there. I think one part of playing in Dynasty for a number of years is actually learning from your mistakes and sort of growing as a player. And I made a mistake having Ayuk and Debo miles apart last season, and fancying Ayuk more than I did Debo. So I'm not going to make that mistake again. I'm going to take the lower guy, and I think it's going to work out to be pretty smart considering Debo's top 10 and Ayuk's. I think he's like mid 30s at keep trade cut as well. So just in the wider market, yeah, I'm going to be ahead of them. Even though I'm not massive on Trey Lance to pass, I just think there's that opportunity that something happens with Debo, he goes, and Ayuk's the 1B to the next guy I'm going to speak about is 1A.
Yeah. So with that, we might as well. I'll let you. Yeah, go on. You can have a.
No, I was just gonna say I was there with you, Kev, last year. We're thinking it was Brandon Ayuk going to break out and Debo was going to be the two, but yeah, it's just gone too far that way. So obviously with whatever he is in Dynasty now, he's going too low. So I'm happy to buy into Brandon Ayuk. He's my wide receiver 33, so I'm just a little bit lower than you guys, but still in that same area. I'm definitely interested in him right now.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, there's one other pass catching weapon over there with the 49ers. So, Kev, we'll hand over to you to talk about the tight end over there. Well,
rookie wide receiver Danny Gray. I'm only kidding. Yeah, tight end George Kittle. I'm going to I said this earlier on in the stream, but I'm going to say it again just because we've got the boys on the show. When Schultz outscores Kittle, I'm going to be really painful onto it. I'm going to be giving some victory laps big time. But keeping it back to Kittle, I just wanted to get your thoughts on when Lance does eventually hit the lineup. There's going to be plenty of hype with all these weapons. Would that be the point for you to sell off the hype, or is Kittle the type of asset that you're going to ride out until the end?
Kittle's a tough one for me. As I was going through stuff, I think it really just comes down to what your team is. So if you're middle of the pack contendish, I think you keep them because it's so hard with the landscape. I think after the top four guys, Pitts, Andrews, Kittle, Kelsey, I think that those are really a clear tier. So if you want to stay within that top tier, I think you have to keep them. But this could be a good time if you're in that middle of the pack, lower end team where you're like, hey, I'm going to try to trade for assets and get out of here. Because I think it is a really big tier break after the top four. I'm not a big TJ Hawkinson guy. I think he's not an athlete. So I'm out on that. Waller could be, but with Javontae, I think it's there. I think Kittle could get the targets like we're talking about. But if Debo was to move, I think you do trade Kittle. I think if you're in that asset where you're at, where you kind of on your team, I think that'll be the highest value you're going to get for him because he's been banged up. He's gotten his ass kicked on that roster the last couple of seasons. Like he's gotten hit a lot. He with his knees. And I think that's what worries me the most about Kittle.
Yeah, he definitely embraces contact. Like that's him. Like he's such a gamer. Like I want him on my team just because he is going to fight for every single fantasy point for you, like I'm on the camp of like, I'm going to ride Kittle. Cause I mean, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe he's around 28 or so. I mean, that's not extremely old. I mean, like Travis Kelce is 34 and still killing it. So, I mean, like, I think Kittle still has at least 3 to 4 years of dominance left. And we've seen Kittle get the ball, just like some manufactured touches, just like some screens and stuff, because like Jimmy G doesn't have the best arm. So like they force feed the ball to Debo, to Kittle, and then they let them just do the rest, which is why Kittle's always hurt, which is why Debo's always hurt. Like, they embrace that contact. So I agree with Kevin, like, if you have a decent backup tight end or able to, get just like somewhat young tight end asset and future draft picks, like a first round draft pick in 2023, I would, just because like the injury history, the injury scare is there. And we still don't know what he is with Trey Lance. Now, it was reported that Trey Lance is attending George Kittle's tight end university. I don't know if you guys heard about that, but I mean, like, that bodes well for their chemistry, I guess, you know, like that's like a good start. And George Kittle is saying all these nice things about Trey Lance. So, you know, I'm not too worried about the chemistry part. I think it all just comes down to Trey Lance's arm, you know, and where it's at. Right now it's a little risky to trade Kittle. But I would honestly wait until there's like a hype video. Trey Lance throws a bomb to Kittle, you know, like on Twitter, and sell him like hotcakes right there, because that's when you can get the most value, when they're healthy, when everyone's excited about them in the offseason.
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully that hype video is a little bit better than the Tua to Hill highlight video that we got there. That hype video, I mean, it definitely did the rounds on Twitter, but I think for all the wrong reasons.
Tua, man, this isn't a Tua show. I was gonna go out, but I won't.
Go ahead, Kevin.
You can have a quick couple of seconds.
Just come on. Like I hate when people rag on these guys and they're like 300 pounds sitting in their mom's basement. Like, you couldn't have made that throw. Like, stop it. Like, I couldn't have made that throw, but it drives me crazy.
Yeah, no, I remember saying exactly the same thing. That's one throw from thousands that he's going to make this offseason. So yeah, it's always funny seeing the overreaction from the dynasty community. We should be used to it by now, but always funny. But yeah, just going back to George Kittle, clearly one of the top tight ends in terms of fantasy. Again, like we've just mentioned with all the pass catchers there, we still don't quite know what it's going to be like with Trey Lance, but we tend to know that these young quarterbacks are coming to the league. Obviously, I was going to say rookie because he basically is a rookie anyway. He didn't play too much last year, but they tend to lean on those tight ends, don't they? So maybe George Kittle could benefit from having Trey Lance there. But I think we've covered everything we need to cover with the 49ers. So we'll move on to the second team that we've got you guys on to talk about, and that's the Arizona Cardinals. And as always, we're going to kick off with the quarterback position and Kyler Murray, who had, to be honest, a down year by his high standards. Last year finished QB 10. Currently ranked as the QB 6 on Keep Trade Cut. So just interested to know where you guys have him in your dynasty rankings. Is he in that tier below the top three that we always talk about in Mahomes, Allen, and Herbert? Have you got him in that tier below those guys?
Yeah. So he is he's my QB4 actually. So I still do think with the rushing upside and everything there, like I think that he's in that tier. I think it's really Allen and Mahomes and Herbert are the top tier to me, like those three guys in dynasty perspectives. And then I have Murray, Jackson, and Burrow in that next tier. Those are kind of my areas, and that's kind of how I have it. And I think I'm not that concerned with Murray. I think that he's the guy there. So like from a fantasy perspective, I think that he's gonna throw a lot. I know that he was averaging like 8 or 9 carries a game, which he's too small for that. So that'll probably tend to go back a little bit. But I think that just with what he's able to do, I think that he's a value right now because I think people are trying to get him on there. Like if he's a QB6 on Keep Trade Cut, I would go try to grab him because I think he's in that top tier, that top 5. So you're looking at that second tier of guys. If you can move around a little bit and get off, like Joe Burrow would be someone that I'm not very high on. Obviously, I'm QB6 for me. Like I wouldn't mind getting something plus for that just because I like Burrow, but I think that Murray sets himself up for more fantasy points.
Yeah, so I'm right around there with Kevin as far as my Kyler Murray rankings go. In Dynasty, I have him at 5. So it sounds like we have Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray flip-flop. Like I have Jackson at 4 and then Murray. But it could easily go either way. And then in redraft, I have him at 4. It's like I don't think he had a down year last year. It's just that he missed 3 games. And on an average per point per game basis, he was quarterback 4. So if he had played in those 3 games, he would have finished as quarterback 4, right behind Tom Brady. So right in front of Patrick Mahomes. So I really like his rushing floor. Even without DeAndre Hopkins to start the season, I still think he has a really nice rushing floor, and I think he'll run even more. Like he has no Hopkins, no Kirk. All he has is AJ Green and Zach Ertz. So it's going to be tough sledding, but that just opens the door for more fantasy points on the ground. So I'm still very high on Kyler Murray, and I hope he stays at that quarterback 6 to give me a discount on draft day.
Yeah, no, I'm exactly like you, Jacob. I've got Lamar as my QB4 and Kyler Murray as my QB5.
Nice.
But yeah, like you touched upon the fact that the weapons there, and we're going to talk about it in a little second, but the weapons there is kind of struggling to kick off the year with Hopkins obviously missing time. It's going to be interesting to see how they begin the season next year. But like you touched upon, both of you touched upon, there's that rushing upside there with Murray. It did kind of scale back last year, but again, as we touched upon, the lack of weapons could mean that he might have to run the ball a little bit more than what the Cardinals would like to do. But yeah, I think in terms of just fantasy as a whole and the upside there, Kyler Murray is one of the top quarterbacks in terms of the upside that he has in fantasy. And Ali, Kev, I feel like both of you guys are pretty high on Murray. I feel like we're all pretty similar when it comes to the top 6 or 7 quarterbacks in fantasy. But what are you hoping for from Kyler Murray next year?
Kev, do you want to take this one?
I'll let you go first, Ali.
So yeah, I'm exactly the same, to be honest. I've got Kyler Murray quarterback 4, Lamar Jackson 5, Burrow 6, and then Deshaun Watson. They're all in my tier 2, and I just feel like you could I say easily. There's a lot of people that I'd be willing to move Joe Burrow off to trade them Joe Burrow and get either Lamar Jackson or Kyler Murray in return this offseason. I think you're going to get a discount. I think at least one of those two are going to have an elite year again this year and really hit it off. So yeah, getting the discount on those two guys. Even Deshaun Watson, I'm still really high on. So yeah, I'm all in on Kyler Murray. He's obviously added a new weapon in Hollywood Brown. I think that's going to work out pretty well for him. So yeah, still really high.
Yeah, same for me. Tier below QB4. Very happy taking there. Joe Burrow. I mean, what are people doing?
Yeah, I think we've all kind of touched upon it, haven't we? There seems to be that tier. So if you can get Kyler, if he's currently being ranked at the bottom of that tier, then use those tiers to your advantage and maybe pivot down to Kyler Murray from one of these guys that are being ranked above him. But yeah, with that, we're going to move on to the running back position. Ali, over to you.
Yes, we'll talk some James Conner. He was one of my big winners from the draft. They obviously avoided any big name running backs. Took one late on, but are you guys willing to buy into James Conner for the next couple of years? Do you think he can repeat as an RB1 this year? He finished as the RB5 in 2021 off the back of just an insane amount of touchdowns. Do you think that you can see a similar kind of year for James Conner?
I think you do, based on what they did in the draft, right? They obviously weren't concerned about it, so that's kind of their guy. And when you saw kind of in weeks 9 through 14, when he was that workhorse for Conner, he never played less than 77% of the snap. He averaged 21 touches per game. I mean, that's where you look for workhorse, and with the lack of competition there, I like Benjamin. I've liked him for a long time, just from a Devy perspective, and I love Keontae Ingram. He's one of my favorite guys from USC. But those guys got the draft capital that they got because of the player that they are. And I think that people overrate him a little bit, because if Conner gets hurt, yeah, then we're talking about something. But I think he's a running back too, right? Like, I think he can be in that running back 2 high end. And if he scores the touchdowns, and I was concerned about the touchdowns. He has 18 total touchdowns last year, which feels like it's due for regression, right? That's the word that everybody loves out there on Dynasty Twitter. But, when you look at it, Arizona was 8th in red zone rushing rate. So that shows me, I mean, they're going to run the ball in the red zone, and they didn't bring anybody in. So who are they going to give the ball to? It's Conner. Like, it's Conner unless he gets hurt. And you really can't predict that. I know we have a lot of people that think they can. You just can't predict it. So going into the season thinking he's going to stay healthy with the rush rate, the touches, I'll buy Conner if I'm a contender. I mean, why not?
100%. I mean, in terms of redraft leagues, he's going in the 3rd round. And if I can, if I can bank on him coming to me in the 3rd round, I'm going to draft wide receiver, and I'll feel good about him as my RB1, especially in those first 6 weeks where there is no Hopkins. So I'm sure that the Cardinals are going to run the ball a ton with Murray and Conner. All right. And I'm sure, like Kevin said, there's going to be a mixture of Benjamin, and Keontae Ingram. But Conner's the guy. All right. He had a lot of talent before all those injury riddled season. He has talent. So, I remember last year there was a guy in my fantasy or in my dynasty league who just wanted to sell him for for pennies. Like, I think he was like, hey, a 2022 third. And it was before the start of the season. And I said, no. I was like, no, like, no, because he's dead. Like, he is dead in the water, but he rose from the grave. I mean, like, that dude had an incredible season, like RB5 and half point PPR. I mean, that dude, had an incredible season. I see that. I see similar numbers, except for a little bit of a touchdown regression, like Kevin said, but still, he's going to have that workhorse volume, at least 20 touches a game, especially in those first 6 weeks. So I would be buying James Conner in Dynasty.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, James Conner coming up like the Undertaker gift, just rising from the dead. It's been great to see in terms
He's
of
no
Dynasty.
Jesus, but pretty close.
You touched upon obviously in redraft, but even in terms of Dynasty, I suppose if you're a contending team, you're kind of approaching it as a redraft, and his value currently on Keep Trade Cut RB27. So, I mean, basically going for next to nothing in terms of the other quarterbacks that go above him. And this is a guy that, like we've touched upon, could be that workhorse, proven that he was the workhorse last year. So even if you do think there's some regression coming in terms of the touchdown, the usage that he's going to get over there with the Cardinals in an offense that, while like we've touched upon, they might not have all the weapons that they hope to have to kick off the season, that could maybe be a potential bonus for James Conner in terms of running the ball. Kyler Murray, a guy that can scramble, extend plays, and hopefully keep this offense on the field for a little bit longer. So yeah, I think a lot of signs point towards James Conner being a potential league winner in Dynasty for giving the cheap value that you can currently get him at in your startups. But yeah, we might as well move on to the wide receivers. We kind of touched upon a few of them, but Kev, I'll hand it over to you to talk about the first wide receiver.
Yeah, initially when I was thinking about the Streamathon months back, I was thinking, oh yeah, this will be a DeAndre Hopkins spot, but I'm not going to talk about him now. We're gonna go for Hollywood Brown, and just want to get your overall thoughts on how you're feeling about the move to the Cardinals, especially with the Hopkins suspension. He's currently wide receiver 27 at Keep Trade Cut. So just wanted to know, how high can he rise in your dynasty rankings this season with a good showing for the Cardinals?
Hey, I'm all aboard the Marquise Brown train. I think, especially why Hopkins is out, right? And Hopkins is old-ish. I say old, and I'm 33, my old ass. But as far as a dynasty wide receiver, he's older. And you're looking at Brown. He posted a top 12 target share last season with Baltimore, which is hard to do with Baltimore's offense and what they were trying to do. I know they had injuries at the running back position. And then I know that everybody talks about his 27% target share in Oklahoma when he played with Murray. And I think there is something to say about that connection with him and Murray there. I think early in the season, he's going to be great. And even Christian Kirk was wide receiver 12 last year without Hopkins in the lineup. That's a big one. If Christian Kirk can be wide receiver 12 in the 4 weeks without Hopkins, Marquise Brown can be wide receiver 12. I think on the level of talent that you're looking at. So to me, I'm all aboard. Like, I don't know how he's not in the top 20 right now. Like, I think that's a value problem. I think that he should be in the top 20. I would rather have Marquise Brown than Michael Pittman on my dynasty roster.
I don't know what else to say. Like, Kevin just killed that. Like, he's convincing me to go buy Hollywood right now. But I'm not going to buy him for like a cheap price. Like, his value is at an all-time high right now. That's why, like, when that trade happened, it's like, I'm not even going to try to, like, I'm not even going to bother. Like, this is the perfect situation for a Marquise Brown. Like Kevin said, they were teammates back at Oklahoma. This is a pass happy offense. So, that his value skyrocketed. So if you have him, keep him and enjoy, because he's only 24 years old. So he has plenty of prime years left. And Kyler's just as young as him. So, that's going to be a duo for a long time. And like Kevin said, Hopkins, is oldish. He's 29 years old, but he was just caught for PED, which means his body is breaking down. He is not going to be as invincible as he was in Houston and when he first arrived in Arizona. So we can't expect that type of level of production from Hopkins moving forward. I still think he's a viable wide receiver 2 for the next 2 years. But Marquise Brown is so much more valuable than Hopkins. I know that wasn't the question, and it's probably obvious, but Marquise Brown is definitely the wideout you want in Dynasty and in redraft this year.
Yeah, there's no denying that what Marquise Brown did over with the Ravens. I mean, Ali likes to label that the wide receiver graveyard. So for Hollywood Brown to come out and did what he did last year was obviously brilliant. And the fact that he now goes to the Cardinals, like you just touched upon, this is a pass-heavy offense, that air raid, that high-tempo offense. It's really exciting. It's the reason why I liked Hopkins. Going into last year, obviously that didn't quite play out the way that I was hoping. But with Hollywood Brown going there, that speed, that ability that he has to take the top off defense, it ties in really nicely with Kyler Murray. And yeah, I think the landing spot's great. And like we touched upon with Hopkins not being there to start the season, Hollywood Brown could absolutely smash to kick off the season. Kev, Ali, have you got any final thoughts on Hollywood Brown?
Yeah, I'm big on Hollywood Brown. I unfortunately don't own any Hollywood Brown in Dynasty, and I don't think we're going to get any Hollywood Brown unless he starts the season off really slow. Then I'll be interested in Hollywood Brown. But again, I can't see it. I think they're just going to have an immediate connection from the college days. So yeah, I think I'm going to remain with no Hollywood Brown shares, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think the fact that they've given up a first round pick for him, it's an indication that they're trying to keep Kyler happy. He's automatically going to be the wide receiver one, and it's perfect timing. They must have known about the Hopkins bit before they made the trade, but yeah, it's looking really good for him. I think I had my doubts in Baltimore. I wasn't sure if there was going to be pass heavy over there, so I've not had a lot of Hollywood Brown, and yeah, poor me.
Absolutely. And before we do move on, I'm just going to throw a quick question back to Jacob and Kevin. I was just looking at Keep Trade Cut and their current rankings, and these two players kind of tie in nicely because Hollywood Brown leaving the Ravens, it's kind of opened up a slot. So Rashad Bateman, he's just going a couple of spots above Hollywood Brown. Just want to quickly know, who would you rather take in Dynasty, Brown or Bateman?
I would take Brown.
Yeah.
Because I think that offense is going to be better for the wide receivers than it would be in Baltimore.
Easy smash on Brown for me as well. We don't really know what Bateman can do. Like we saw flashes last year, and he is going to be the de facto number one. Although Mark Andrews is the real number one, but so we don't really know Bateman's ceiling. But we know that Marquise Brown's, he has a very high ceiling, and maybe he hasn't even touched it, and Kyler can unlock that. So I would much rather have Hollywood.
Yeah, love it. Thought it was an interesting question, but you both just nailed it quite easy. Yeah, I think I agree with you, Hollywood Brown going to the Cardinals. But with that, there's another wide receiver over with the Cardinals that I'd like to have a quick talk about. Obviously, Rondale Moore, a really disappointing rookie season. It looks great for like week one, and then beyond that, it seemed to all slide downhill. Finished wide receiver 52. So that's his current ranking on Keep Trade Cut, wide receiver 52. I mean, guys, I'm kind of looking here because I've got Rondale Moore in a few leagues. Is there any hope for him to bounce back year two? Do you think he can maybe outproduce what he did last year? Please give me some hope.
No.
No. Thanks, I mean, I should have known from Kevin. Kevin loved absolutely ripping into me when we had him as a guest. I should have known it was coming.
I don't. I'm out. I mean, you can like him, sure. I mean, I just don't think his profile fits. I mean, he should do better, right? The first few weeks with Hopkins out, like he should. If he doesn't, then you're really screwed, Matt, because then you're not gonna be able to like do anything with the guy. I just don't. I wasn't high on him. I have 0 shares coming out. I just don't have him anywhere, and I just don't think that he fits very well in the offense. They have to really scheme him better, and they don't do that. Kingsbury's not a good coach. He just has been. And I think one of the things that they talk about with his offensive scheme is that, and it was basically a college coach was saying that it is one of the worst schemes in NFL. It's easy to defend his scheme, but they also talked about how it wouldn't even be the top 25 in college football. So you have an NFL coach who gets shit on by college coaches about his offensive scheme. I don't trust guys like that for more. Like I wouldn't trust that. If he went somewhere else, are they going to scheme him? Could he be Percy Harvin? Maybe. Like he could be, but just not in that scheme.
What's funny is that I remember when Cliff Kingsbury was hired, and there was a stat that said he had a losing record at Texas Tech.
Yeah.
What? like I know he scored a bunch of points, but he didn't stop a nosebleed. Like, I don't know. So it was just an interesting hire from the get-go. And like Kevin just said, which was my ammo, like he is a terrible play caller. He's not a good coach. And so Rondale Moore had like one good week last year and everyone lost their minds and said he's the number one waiver. And I felt like the contrarian saying like, no, like he had like 4 catches. He had 1 catch for 80 yards and like a total of like 105. I don't know, like, but it was that one broken play where he had 80 yards and everyone lost their mind. It's like, oh, the breakout's happening. Let's go. And I was like, whoa. There was nothing before that. He had 1 80-yard catch and did nothing after that. Like, cool your, like, you know, like slow your roll on Moore. Like I am out too. There is glimmer of hope that he can have a breakout game or 2 with Hopkins not there. And I'm sure that Kevin is with me. If he does have a breakout game, sell him like hotcakes as fast as you can, or wait for a hype video. It doesn't matter. Just sell him if you can. I wouldn't outright drop him, you know, but I would definitely sell him if you can.
Just sell him to Matt. That's who you should sell him to. Like, right when he has that one breakout game, you sell him to Matt in your league.
If I could have that one boom week to kick off next year, I'm moving on. I'm going to blame. He's not here to defend himself. I'm going to blame Dave Wright, who we had on as a guest. He absolutely loved Rondale Moore as a rookie, and yeah, I kind of bought into that. I feel like it's Dave's fault, really. I mean,
Matt, I want to see your dynasty roster with like Michael Carter, Sincere McCormick, and Rondale Moore. I want to see it out there somewhere. You know, it's on. You got one of those out there.
Oh no.
No comment there. We'll quickly move on because Kevin's getting a little bit too close to the truth there with my rosters. Ali, Kevin, have you got any final thoughts on Rondale Moore? I mean, am I hopeful? I mean, no, I'm not really, to be honest. I mean, these guys sold it perfectly. I feel like we're just waiting for that window maybe to potentially move off him. Wish I did it sooner when he had that big game to start last year. But yeah, what do you two feel about Rondale Moore?
I'll just keep it short and sweet. He was the wrong Moore to take in 2021.
Yeah, short and sweet like Rondale, I guess. It's funny you mentioned ceilings as well. Like Rondale's not touched any ceiling because he's that short. But enough of the short jokes. I just think like we had Marvin Eloquin on earlier as well, and he's a big Rondale fan. So you're not in a club on your own, Matt. But I just don't see it. I think there was a little bit of hype before Hollywood Brown thinking, oh, Rondale Moore's going to take the Kirk role and he's gonna flash, but I just can't see it. Personally, like if I'm gonna be going for like any deeper wide receiver for the Cardinals, I'll wait till like round 25, 26, just take a stab at Antoine Wesley just for no reason really, just because he's a roster filler. That's how much I love Rondale Moore.
I mean, yeah, it doesn't get any better than that, does it really? We're absolutely just shit all over Rondale Moore. So we might as well move on to the tight end position. And this may be a little bit interesting, actually, what's going on over there with the Cardinals and the tight end position. So, Ali, over to you to talk about these tight ends.
Yes, I'm just a bit confused about what's going on with the Titans in Arizona. They re-signed Zach Ertz after he impressed, signed him to a 3-year deal, and then they go and snipe the Buccaneers and they grab Trey McBride in the second round of the NFL draft. So just historically, recently, the Cardinals haven't put much stock into the tight end position. But do you think this changes now? And can you see both of these tight ends being productive?
I like McBride in this area. I think when you're looking at Ertz's contract, so I looked at it before we came on. Basically, they're going to have until next year because it's a cap hit of $12.8 million, which is pretty significant in 2023. Like that's a pretty significant cap hit. So the potential out's going to be 2024. So if you're buying McBride right now, I think you're going to hold. Hopefully he develops and then he'll take over. As far as this season goes, I think Ertz is going to be fine. I think basically they're touchdown dependent, both these guys. So like I think that's what you're looking at as a tight end. So these are your streaming tight ends. These are your late level tight ends. I think they'll take away from each other. Beginning of the year better, probably because Hopkins is out and Moore is there. So they'll be fine. They're going to get the targets. But you're looking at it. 2024 is when McBride will be the tight end one, and unless Ertz gets hurt, which is not out of the question mark because he's been hurt a lot.
Yeah, I think that Zach Ertz is a tight end one this year for sure. Especially with no Hopkins, and Zach Ertz finished as the tight end 5 when he came over to the Cardinals. So like from week 17 to 18 with the Cardinals, he finished as the tight end 5 in half PPR leagues. So Kyler Murray loves him. He fed him a lot of targets because he's probably the most reliable weapon that they have outside of Hopkins, at least last year. And now he's going to be his most reliable weapon for the first 6 weeks. So I really like Ertz in redraft. Now in Dynasty, it's really hard to gauge where he's at. But he's 31 years old. He probably has 2 more years left of being a steady mid to low tight end 1. In this tight end landscape, I look favorably upon him. And I think if you can grab him, if you are a contender, a tight end away, I would definitely offer, a second round pick in 2023 if it's late, like a 2023 or 2024, just to see if you can pry him away from that manager. I am not too scared off from Trey McBride. Like, I like him as a product or as a prospect. He went to Colorado State and I'm out here in Colorado. He was like a hometown hero. The Broncos were really hoping that he would fall to them. But that's neither here nor there. But I'm not too scared off of McBride if I'm an Ertz manager for at least a year and a half, because it takes tight ends to, to learn the system, to really pick up the nuances of the NFL and the offensive playbook. So I think that Ertz is pretty safe for at least a year, probably 2 years.
Yeah, I think Ertz is a really interesting one. I know, Kev, we spoke about it recently. We was ecstatic when he left the Eagles, freed up Dallas Goedert, and kind of freed himself as well. I believe he was tight end 4, I want to say tight end 5 between that when he went to the Cardinals and the end of the season. So kind of freed himself a little bit. But now Trey McBride obviously is kind of crushing his value a little bit, kind of stopping him getting opportunities early. So while I fully agree, Zach Ertz, I think he's going to be a great tight end if you're looking to win now, and somebody that you should be looking to grab. But yeah, it's just interesting that the Cardinals kind of got a tight end for whichever situation you're in Dynasty. If you're a contender, they've got Ertz, and if you're rebuilding, I think that Trey McBride's a great tight end to pick up, one that you've maybe got to wait on a little bit, but I feel long term could be a really interesting fantasy tight end. Ali, Kev, before we wrap things up, any final words on these tight ends?
Yeah, I really like both of them, and I think if you do own both of them, if you got Ertz, why not target McBride as well in the late second round of your rookie drafts? I've taken him a couple of times there. You've got Ertz for this year, possibly for next year as well, and then you've got McBride who's going to ascend into that tight end 1 role. So I'm happy with rolling with both of these tight ends in Dynasty.
Yeah, I think the Cardinals GM's playing a bit of Dynasty, and he's got the older guy that's win now, and he's got the McBride, the guy that's going to take over the role. So he's playing it perfectly from a Dynasty point of view. But I actually really like the fact that Ertz is there. It's actually going to push McBride's value down a little bit, and I'm happy to jump all over McBride. I think he's a great prospect. Even with round 2 draft capital, I still really like him. Someone I won't go in after mid to late second. So it does seem weird because the Cardinals fear just like horrible tight end rooms like Max Williams and I think Seals Jones was there back in the day. And we're not going to mention any more tight ends, Matt. Maybe one that might look like you, but I think it's interesting how it's just completely flipped. They never used tight end, and now they've got 2.
No, absolutely, and a great way to wrap things up. Jacobs, Kevin, it's been an absolute pleasure having you both on. It's been a lot of fun. Got us through. Obviously, we're coming towards the end of the Streamathon. It's been great having you both on. And Kevin, I just want to say thank you for not being too harsh on me. Obviously, you've taken note from when we had you on as a guest. You've been a little bit nice to me today, so I appreciate that. Obviously, all for charity, you've decided to come on and be all nice. So I absolutely love it. But before you guys jump off, please do let everyone know where they can catch you. Anything that you might be working on currently.
Yeah, you can get my Work at Football guys. I have a couple article series coming out about crowded running back rooms, and then also the Debbie Royale Patreon. We're pushing for 100. We have 80 patrons right now, and so we're trying to get to that 100. We just put out our full ranking sheets, and we really appreciate you guys out there if you check us out. And I know you have my boy Dynasty Theory coming on. You got to ask John about Tutu. He loves Tutu Atwell. So just make sure you talk about him.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you can find me on Twitter at Ain't Done Yet, and done is spelled DUNNE. I do fantasy basketball and fantasy football content for Triple Play Fantasy, and also do a splash of betting too. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Absolutely. As I say, it's been an absolute pleasure, a
Yeah.
lot of fun, and thank you. And I'm sure we'll talk again soon. And have a great afternoon, evening.
All right, guys.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
One more
Thanks a
hour.
lot.
Hang in there.
And Kev, I'll hand over to you to lead us into the final hour. I mean, I feel like I'm struggling, but I know we've got some great guests coming on, and it's going to be a lot of fun. This last hour, I think these are the guests that we need for this final hour to see us through. It's going to be fun.
I mean, it is what it is. It's the main event. We're down by 4. We're driving with the ball. Game's on the line, but we've got some absolute studs coming on. These are guys that have supported us from the start, so it's fantastic to have them on to round out the Streamathon. 3 great blokes individually. Shall we bring them on?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
What's
Obviously.
up, guys? Last hour. Let's go.
So first of all, it's great to have you on. It's a Dynasty Theory, boys. We've got John, Mitch, and Dan, and we're going to be talking the NFC West, the Seahawks, and the Rams. It's worked out really well. We started off on the Bengals 15 odd hours ago, and we're going to finish on the Rams, the 2 Super Bowl teams. So my OCD did plan it, and it worked out really great, as we said. But thank you for coming on and finishing the Streamathon. And how are you all feeling?
I'm good. Probably a lot better than you 3. What is it? 18 hours, 24 hours?
16. So I mean, we're not quite there, but
Okay.
So John's not as impressed now. So we've not gone for the big 24. 16. I mean, what's 16?
We were going to take it easy on you fellas, but not anymore.
Mad respect for the 3 is there, putting on this marathon for such a great cause. And to be here tonight's an honor. We're always glad to support you. 2 conversations close to my heart: football, as we all know, for all of us on here, and then supporting the mental health issues and facilitating improvement in that area. Just like a selfless shame here, I'm also involved in a project called Charlie's Huddle. If you go to charliewaisaki.com, a gentleman who was the 2nd all-time leading rusher at the Maryland, came down with bipolar disorder, was in the Cowboys camp. Just what you guys are doing here over 16 hours impacts so many people out there, people you would never even think of it. Here's a guy who was at the top of the mountaintop. So mad kudos. Love to be here tonight, guys.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's it's an extremely worthy cause. Obviously, we've seen mental health issues creep into the NFL as well. Guys like DJ Chark, Calvin Ridley, AJ Brown, Dak Prescott as well has actually spoken out about it as well. So really relevant cause. We've done a great day so far of getting the donations. We're going to finish strong with you 3 boys. We've got the big hitters coming on to bring us home, and we're going to kick off with the Seahawks, and we'll start off with you, Matt.
Yeah, like I say, we've got 3 great guests on, so it's going to be a lot of fun. But sadly, we've got to start with the QB position and the Seahawks. I mean, what a terrible way to kick off.
It's perfect for John because this is like John's guy. It will always be John's guy. Drew Lock is like, when John Bauer wants to grow up, he just wants to someday be Drew Lock.
No, I absolutely love it, and I feel like I've got a question coming up. Maybe we shouldn't ask John because we already know the answer there. But as I say, Drew Lock over there, Geno Smith, who's kind of getting a little bit of momentum at the moment. There's talks that he could potentially be the guy that's pushing to be the start for week 1. So I'm just interested to know, who would you guys prefer to be the starting quarterback for these Seahawks pass catchers?
Can I intervene before John just has his Drew Lock moment? if I can.
We'll save John for the end.
I think this is a fun one, but I even think John Bauer is going to be off this in a matter of maybe 3-4 weeks. I can almost feel in my bones here that Jimmy GQ or Baker Mayfield is going to end up in Seattle or Carolina. I just think it comes down to timing and negotiations and, ownership getting out of the way. And, when push comes to shove, they need a quarterback. And I don't see it being Drew Lock or Geno Smith. So other than like bottom of the roster guys that I might just not cut because it's not settled yet, if they were on my roster last year, I'll hang on to them. But I am staying far away from both of these guys.
Really, all of them, though. All the ones you just mentioned, Dan, I don't care who the quarterback is for the Seahawks, whether it's Drew Lock, Geno Smith, Baker Mayfield, Jimmy G. Like even on my super flex rosters in 16 team leagues, I do not want them on my teams. I just don't. Like I know you could still somehow find value out of Davis Mills. Those 4 quarterbacks, if they play for the Seahawks at the end of this year, I don't see any value there personally.
It's a good point. JB,
Can I jump in yet? So selfishly, guys, I hope it's Drew Lock for the sheer fact that I can move as many shares as possible off of my rosters.
There's a lot.
There are. And I've had luck. I've moved Drew Lock for Robert Tonyan in a third. I moved Drew Lock for, I want to say it was a second at one point recently. So ideally, that's what I want to see happen. I do agree with Dan. I think it's going to be more Jimmy Garoppolo, Baker Mayfield. If the Browns would have cut Mayfield already, I think he'd be in Seattle. If Jimmy Garoppolo were not injured, I think he'd be in Seattle or Carolina, just like Dan mentioned. But for the team in the pass catcher, excuse me, getting choked up over here. I can't even think about it.
This is tough for John tonight.
No, I was outside all day, and my allergies are all jacked up. So I'll blame that. But with Drew Lock, I think it goes against what Pete Carroll wants, right? Geno Smith just makes sense. Control the game. Don't lose it. We don't need you to win it because we're probably not going to win many games anyway, but just don't lose it for us. And that's where it comes into play. Rashad Penny, Kenneth Walker, Chris Carson, even though Mitch and I have a thought there on Chris Carson, I think a lot of people share, but I think the running game is going to be heavily involved. So from a receiving standpoint, Geno Smith, I think he's the safer option. And then they ride into 23 and they get a top 10 pick. Drew Lock, I just don't think they're going to go that route ultimately, even though Pete Carroll came out and said, oh, he'd be my highest graded quarterback out of this class. Well, based on the draft capital, I think Dan would be the highest graded quarterback in this class. So, yeah, I think it's going to be Geno Smith out of these two. But really, I don't know if the starting quarterback in 22 is on that roster yet.
We know Pete Carroll's the all-time salesman where you just don't listen to coach speak that ever comes out of his mouth. And if for some reason we're wrong and they did stay with those 2 quarterbacks, Geno Smith's more of a game manager that will not lose a game for you, where there's just that's something about Drew Lock we know where he's just interception prone. And if he doesn't do anything to change that, Geno might be the safer pick.
And like with Geno, you're getting 200 passing yards a game. It's nothing extraordinary, but you look at the splits with the target shares last year, DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, they garnered 60% of the targets from Geno Smith last year. 2 players at 60%. So now what happens with Noah Fant? Maybe we see it split up a little bit more, but it's all going to be funneled through those guys.
Yeah, I just firstly want to apologize that the first question you've had on the Streamathon is the QB situation. It's just really unfortunate how that landed, but hopefully this next question, the next guy we're going to speak about is someone that you rate higher than both of those dudes we spoke about then. Over to you, Ali.
Yeah, so Kenneth Walker was a surprise to me to see the Seahawks be aggressive and go running back round 2. I was previously a big fan of Rashad Penny, as I know Matt is. Do you guys see Kenneth Walker coming in and taking a big workload, being the RB1 on the team from game 1? And then also just a follow-up. Was he your 102 in rookie drafts?
I'm going to be quick and succinct here because I could go all night. He's not going to go in there and demand a majority of the work. I think it's going to be about a 40-35 split with, Chris Carson and other running backs potentially getting some work. Chris Carson with a neck injury, who knows if he even plays. So right now with our projections, we have him slated for a 10% market share, like minimal. But neither Rashad Penny or Kenneth Walker are going to be involved in the passing game. Like I said, whether it's Drew Lock, who might be a little bit more willing to take shots down the field, or Geno Smith, who's going to funnel everything through the big 3 targets, we're not going to see much from Penny and Walker in that regard. So as long as Penny is healthy, he is going to garner most of the work, but we're still going to see a nice 1-2 punch. And ideally, like I said, that's what Pete Carroll wants to do. And no, Kenneth Walker was not my 102. He was my 105 max. And in 80 some leagues, I have 0 shares. So that tells you right there that I'm not in on him. So I'm already getting my running shoes ready, boys, doing my victory laps whenever this is Rashad Penny's backfield. And then they extend them into 23.
You have your running shoes on because Mitch is ready to throw down with you, I think. I know this is Mitch's boy. Come on, Mitch, you're ready. Go ahead, Mitch.
I mean, I completely agree. Week 1, John is right. It's going to be more of Penny than it's going to be a Walker. I don't know how anyone can go into next season believing Penny is just going to be able to withstand a 17-game schedule in the NFL. He just hasn't been able to so far. And so for that reason, Kenneth Walker was my 102, still is my 102. There was just a couple of leagues to where I didn't draft him if I had the 102, but it was just, weird circumstances there. But I think they're both just going to be flex plays. And that's going to be the problem is if you spend the 102 on him, and it's why a lot of people aren't, is if you spend the 102, you want to put him in as your RB2 on your dynasty teams. And you can't right now. Like you're hoping he could get you 10 points until Penny goes out. And then I think he's going to be really good. Unlike John, though, I think Penny or Walker, whoever's getting most of the work, is going to actually catch a ball in the NFL. I know they can't for some weird reason because in college or like highlight films, they couldn't, but they'll be fine. They'll be okay.
Between the two, they will combine for fewer than 50 targets. So you split that up among 2 backs. That is not ideal any way you slice it.
They'll be over 50.
I think the truth is somewhere.
I'll bet you right now it's not.
I think the truth is somewhere in the middle there, and I think that's the hardest thing to project with Kenneth Walker is what we don't know. So he's going to the camp. I don't even think Seattle knows yet. Not only can he catch or get involved in that pass game, but if he can't pass protect, he won't get the chance to catch. So JB might be really right because just the opportunities are not going to be there. Maybe he could catch the ball and run some routes, but if he can't pass protect, he's not going to be in on 3rd down at all to get the opportunity to showcase that. So how this young rookie could develop in camp and how quick will depend whether, that starting point where he's involved is closer to Mitch's. Okay, maybe a little after week 1 or a little more to JB's. It's going to be a little bit longer down the road because of guys like Penny and depending on what Carson's health is. So I'm a little bit in between. I'm not as high. I'm probably closer to JB than Mitch on Kenneth Walker, though. He was definitely around that 105 range for me. Roster specific. If I was really desperate for a running back in a deeper league, I might roll the dice on Walker. But more often, I'm taking those big receivers before Kenneth Walker.
You're such a coach, Dan.
He really is. You guys know what's going to happen, though. Carson's going to retire. Penny's going to get injured in week 1, and Kenneth Walker is going to go on to have the greatest rookie season of all time, and I'm never going to hear the end of it. But I can always say, it happened because of the injuries. So I have that cop-out response.
But a quick timeout, something that no one's talking about here with the Seattle situation. This team could be really bad. Like if they don't fix this quarterback situation and you're in the West and they're stacking the box against the run because they're not afraid of whoever the quarterback is, this could be a uphill battle for whoever's running the ball.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. Matt Alley, Kenneth Walker 102 thoughts?
Well, I mean, should I go first? I mean, I put out a Twitter thread about how I think he should be the automatic 102. Clearly, John doesn't agree with that, but no, I really like him as a prospect. I remember also putting out another tweet. There's 3 metrics that stood out when I was looking on PFF that stood out to me. Maybe this stood out because the fact he was number 1 in all of these yards after contact rushing, he led the NCAA in that. Missed tackles, forced rushing, he led the NCAA in that. And then explosive runs, so runs over 10 yards, again, he led the NCAA in that. So my picture from what I'm getting from that, I mean, I might not be the smartest in this group of guys that we've got here, but I'm seeing somebody that can either run through you or run around you. So I absolutely love him as a prospect and rushing the ball. There's obviously question marks when it comes to the receiving game, but just down to a rushing standpoint, I absolutely love Kenneth Walker, and I stand by my fact that I think he should go 102 in rookie drafts.
Love it.
Yeah, for me, he was an automatic 102 just because of the scarcity at the position. You had him and Breece Hall, and then there was a massive drop off. And the dynasty running back landscape has changed so much the last year or so. Where I feel good about Kenneth Walker, and there's a lot of running backs that I don't feel good about. So, automatic for me.
it's really, I think with Walker, it's quite interesting. If you do like him, you could tell yourself a story where he has a bit of a Nick Chubb rookie season. I think he has been comped to be a mini Nick Chubb, a small Chubb maybe. That might be a bit parental advisory to say that, but
maybe a half Chubb. I don't know.
And the reason is, I think if you are in on Kenneth Walker, there's potentially going to be a buy window mid-season. If he's playing behind Rashad Penny, getting half the touches or less than half, playing on a bad team, not performing well, people might want to move off him and look to re-roll for something else or some other assets. So if you do like Kenneth Walker and you don't have the high picks in your rookie draft, I think he's someone that potentially could be going after mid-season.
Now, if he goes out and based on the projections that Mitch and I put together, if he goes out and puts up that type of season, especially if we find out then the Seahawks, that might have been accurate, Seahawks, they are not looking to extend Rashad Penny, you're going to have that value insulation that we always talk about. And Mitch sums it up perfectly all the time. Like, even if he just has an okay season, by default, he's still going to be running back 15, 16 for dynasty purposes. Who are you going to move above him? Ezekiel Elliott, Aaron Jones, these guys, they hit that age threshold that people don't want, even if they do produce. So by default, he is going to have that value insulation. I just think he's going to, even if he does get that lead back role there in 23, I think he's going to be exposed and people are going to be very disappointed.
Yeah, it's been interesting to speak about the running back. Obviously, we've had quite a contentious chat there on the Kenneth Walker, which was quite fun. But we're going to move on to wide receiver now. DK Metcalf, in my eyes, the biggest loser of the Wilson trade. I think it was an amazing fit with his skill set on the deep ball. Currently wide receiver 8 at keep trade cut. So just hypothetical trade. If you've got DK on if you've do you know what? It's late. We've had a long night.
We'll give you a pass on that one, Kev.
I'm struggling here. Basically, my question is DK Metcalf or Sutton and a 23-second. Basically, what's your thoughts on that? Which side have you got? I can't get my words out.
I'm still staying with DK Metcalf. I think you got to temper expectations this year, and I do love the 2023 draft. But I just think at some point Seattle figures the quarterback situation out, and he's such an elite athlete. He went from amongst the big boys to, yes, he did take a drop in every format I'm drafting in this year, whether it's dynasty, best ball, so forth. But I think there's a value to be had in Metcalf, and I would just take the bet on talent and long-term dynasty outlook over the gamble of a Cortland Sutton in that future pick.
I agree. I mean, he's 2 years younger than Sutton, so that second just isn't going to add enough for me. Although anything with a 23 in front of it should probably have 3 times the value than what it does. But for me, if I was going to look for Metcalf, if I was going to look to trade him, I'd look probably a little bit higher, maybe try to get what I could do to get like Treylon Burks, right? Someone who's a little bit younger, someone who's going to produce probably close to what Metcalf does with the horrible quarterback he's going to have. And then you get to discount yourself a couple of years there. So you get to go from being 24 down to 22. And I think it just helps out a little bit more instead of going up to Sutton, who's 2 years older with the new quarterback and still, only 2 years back from that ACL injury that he had.
This is going to be far less contentious than the Kenneth Walker conversation. I am going to agree with Dan and Mitch. I'm perfectly fine moving off of DK at the right price. I moved him for what I see as all but a lock to be a top 6 23 first. And that's because I don't see him going out and even putting up top 18 numbers here in 2022. And because of that, I was okay making that bet. But you go down to Cortland Sutton in the 23 second. We don't know where it's going to land. I would like a little bit more, maybe 1 tier up for me. And we don't even know where DK Metcalf is going to be next year. So either he might be in Seattle, they land their quarterback after going through whatever happens here in 22, or he gets a change of scenery. And I know. Well, wide receivers, when they switch teams, often it's a down year in year one. But hell, if you're going anywhere away from Drew Lock and Geno Smith, I have to see that as a win. So I would want a little bit more, but I have no issue pivoting off of DK Metcalf in general.
Matt Allen, that trade, is it 5 for 5?
I mean, yeah, I think personally I'd take DK Metcalf. And I might be crazy, but I've still got him quite high in my rankings, still got him right up there as wide receiver 6. So, yeah, I think that the drop off to go down to Sutton, while I do think the situation's obviously improved for Colton Sutton, like the guy said, I feel like that 2023 second, while we all love that 2023 class and what it could be, I just feel like that's not quite enough for me to move down from Metcalf. If I could get a first, then yeah, I'm happy to make that, but a second, it just doesn't quite feel enough for me.
Yeah, same with me. I'm a little bit lower on wide receiver 10 for DK, but yeah, I'm still leaning him in this situation. His value's as low as it's going to be. I think as soon as he gets a half a quarterback upgrade, then his value's going to go back up again. So if I'm going to pivot off him, I'm going to pivot to someone like Deontay Johnson, who I think you can pick up a little bit of value, and I still really like Deontay Johnson. So that's the sort of move I'd like to make.
And I want to say one thing, if they do end up landing a player like Jimmy Garoppolo, who, while he's not exciting and certainly doesn't have the deep ball that Russ Wilson has in that rapport with DK, maybe we see a more underneath role where Jimmy Garoppolo is able to feed DK Metcalf in stride and he's able to take it to the house. He's able to get that yak. And I know it's not predictable, but that is something that could also bolster his value. Again, a heck of a lot better than 50-50 balls coming from Drew Lock.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you prefer your 50-50 ball. Well, your 70-30 ball from Russell Wilson over a 20-80 ball from Drew Lock, definitely.
I was very generous with that 50-50.
I love that. That's brilliant. And we're gonna stick at wide receiver now, and we'll come to you, Matt.
Yeah, so Tyler Lockett, obviously the other wide receiver over there in Seattle, and a guy that, to be honest, has been a really solid wide receiver too over the past few years. Obviously, we know that he's now lost his quarterback in Russell Wilson, but just looking at his ADP, he's currently going around other aging veterans like Adam Thielen, Robert Woods. So just interested to know, as I mentioned, with the fact that he's now lost Russell Wilson, who would you rather target out of those aging veteran wide receivers? Yeah, are you still interested in Tyler Lockett?
You know, I've always been firmly in the never Tyler Lockett fan club, but his price has almost dropped to the point now to where I like him more than Thielen and I like him more than Woods, especially in Dynasty 2 where you get to, he's only, only 29, but Thielen's 31, Woods is 30 coming off an injury. Yeah. And with Lockett, he's, in that slot role to even Drew Lock can probably throw to a slot wide receiver decently enough. And Lockett is so good. I mean, I don't remember the catch rate that he had. Remember the year that when Russell Wilson was throwing to him, I think this was 3 years ago, he had 140 QBR or something like that. We just threw to Lockett. And
the quarterback rating, I think, was a perfect 158.3.
Is that what it was?
I'm pretty sure it was perfect.
In my head, but I didn't want to say it because I'm like, no, that's probably a little too lofty.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, but I mean, as far as Thielen, he doesn't last 16 games anymore. Who knows what Lockett's going to do in that new offense? So with Lockett, at least we know from training camp he's going to be locked in, working with whoever the quarterback is. So I'll go with him.
And I was hoping for none of the above. Maybe by default, if you look at the rankings, Lockett might be right ahead of Thielen and Woods, but he is getting to that age 30 point where what do you do with him in Dynasty? It's a young man's game, and there's just such an influx of young wide receivers and options and choices to build your roster on. And there's nothing to do with a Lockett. I don't want him in a startup. I don't want to trade for him. I have no interest. I don't want to insult anybody by I honestly, I don't know if I'd want to give a 2023 third for him. I'd just rather have anything else on my roster. So unless he just falls on my lap, you could keep Tyler Lockett, Thielen, Woods, all of the above.
For Dynasty purposes, I have Thielen and Lockett in the same tier. Robert Woods, one tier below. We have the, switching teams, going to Ryan Tannehill, the injury. He is, 30 years old. And I know Adam Thielen is, 31. But if he is on the field with that touchdown upside he has and as underrated as Kirk Cousins is, and you have Justin Jefferson on the other side, we can lock him in for top 18 weeks over and over and over again. And for Tyler Lockett, we may never see a wide receiver 2 season from him again. That's a very realistic possibility. So for me, it goes Thielen, Lockett, and then Woods. But with Lockett and Thielen in the same tier, I would look to maneuver and get a third or even a fourth thrown in to, as Dan says, to call mom and tell her about it.
Gotta give mom something, something to go home and tell mom about, a little something extra.
I butchered that so bad. Oh man,
a little something extra in that trade to make it worth it there, For this year, JB, I do agree. Like, I'd probably put Thielen, like, if it was like a redraft league, over Lockett, just because there's a little more upside in that Minnesota offense. Mitch says, hey, we, he always kind of like Lockett. The price was too high, but now he doesn't have Russell Wilson and he's getting older. So for this year, Thielen. But, from a dynasty perspective, I might just have Lockett just a notch ahead of him because he's a couple of years younger.
I mean, but for all of them, very well could just be 1 year. Like, why we shouldn't be looking out 2-3 years with these guys. Give me 1 year production, and then we'll figure out after that.
Yeah, from the perspective, they just die on our rosters. I mean, the bottom is falling off soon. So if you do get a year of production, great.
We'll come to Ali and Matt just to round out of those three guys. Which one stands out to you?
Ali, I'll let you take this one first.
Thanks, Matt. 1 year rental. Give me Adam Thielen. It's probably Robert Woods, to be honest. With AJ Brown getting traded away from Tennessee, Robert Woods comes in. He's got Treylon Burks as wide receiver as well. He could be the wide receiver one on this offense. Robert Woods has been decent for me in fantasy in the past, coming off an injury, but I'll just take the upside on Woods.
Yeah, personally, I'm going Adam Thielen, but really, I just want to apologise to Mitch, Dan, and John. I mean, 2 questions in that I've asked, and 2 absolute stinkers of questions. We talked about the rubbish quarterbacks, and now I'm talking about the rubbish wide receiver over there. So I promise our questions will improve as we move on.
Yeah, but figuring out these scenarios and these situations, whether it's redraft, best ball, dynasty, that's where the edges can be had. So we can't always talk about the studs, and I'm used to it on a weekly basis because I deal with Mitch and Dan, so I'm used to this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think on Lockett, Thielen, Woods, etc. The only thing I'll add is I think for 1 year it's Adam Thielen. I do like him a lot. He's one of my most owned wide receivers in Dynasty. It's going to sound strange, but thinking 1, 2, maybe 3 years, I'd probably still say Tyler Lockett because I think he's going to age really well. But we're going to move on from it because it's a smelly question that we had then. But we're going to move on to tight ends, which it has been a smelly position for the Seahawks in the past, but maybe it's looking a little bit better, Ali.
Yeah, so got to talk about Noah Fant. Obviously, the big trade involving Fant. How much did that trade affect his dynasty value for you guys? I know for such a talented, athletic tight end, I've always thought he can take that next step to sort of be in that tier 2 or 3 of the tight end position, just below the elite. So, do you think he can still take that next step, or do you think he's always destined to be a tier or 2 below?
Always a 2 or 2 below for me. I just think he never really materialized in Denver with Russ Wilson. I don't think for as much draft capital as they put into him, I don't think you just give away players like that. I think if they wanted to pull that deal out without moving Fant, they probably could have found a way. Instead, they move him. And then when I look at the upside of some tight ends in the next tier above, I don't see him rising above another tier of guys I'm looking at with upside. So Fant, to me, not in a good situation. And he's lost a lot of that shine that he once had. So he's on the 2 tier for me.
His perceived values dropped so low. He's been a buy for me since he got moved to Seattle. And you could push the narrative, even if terrible Drew Lock is the quarterback. Well, he has that relationship with Noah Fant, they both come from Denver. So you could buy into that a little bit. However, I don't think he ever catapults himself up into that upper echelon. I don't think we're going to talk about him with the likes of TJ Hawkinson, Mark Andrews, certainly Kyle Pitts and the players like that. But I would feel quite comfortable having him right around tight end 12. And I've seen people putting players above him. I'm like, they have no business being above him whatsoever. So we play in a lot of 2 PPR tight end premium leagues. I know you gentlemen play in tight end premium as well. There's going to be weeks that he puts up 12 to 15 points, and you're going to feel really good with that. So at the price to acquire, I still think he's a player that I'm looking to bring onto my rosters.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't think he's ever going to be Hawkinson, right? I don't think he's going to get there. But he's also never going to be what Hunter Henry is now, what Evan Ingram is now, to where He's just kind of on your roster and you don't like it. You can look at Noah Fant, and each week, if you're in tight end premium, 12-team league, you could put him in your lineup, be like, I'm not going to die by having this guy in my lineup, which could happen with like most of the tight ends that are ranked down below him. They could give you 0 weeks. They could give you 3-point weeks, to where at least with him, yeah, you're never going to get probably 20 points. And if you do, it's going to be once a season. But he is someone to where there's like I like the good tight ends. I'm okay with a couple of the other ones, and all the rest I want nothing to do with. And he's at least in the tier of I'm okay having him on my team.
And don't forget, last year, Gerald Everett, he put up over 60 targets. And Noah Fant is a better athlete, better profile. And I think he's going to put up a better season than we saw from Gerald Everett last year. Was he a world beater by any means? No. But I still think he outperforms that, and he gives you a nice, stable floor. Maybe the ceiling isn't going to be what we're looking for, but still somebody that I'm okay with having on my roster, like I said.
But Gerald Everett had Russ Wilson. That's no longer in play there. I think that top 12, I think your tier is good, JB. I think that's the ceiling, number 12 overall tight end, if things all fell in place.
I'm not talking about the quality of targets, but the way it's distributed, it could be Geno Smith, though, who was involved in that offense last year. And again, it funneled through mostly Metcalf and Lockett, almost 60% target share, but the other targets, they got to go, and they're going to be earned by Noah Fant. All right. So I know Russ isn't stepping in the door, throwing him the ball, but if Gerald Everett I don't care if it's from Dan's mom, is throwing 63 targets to Everett, Fant's going to match that and be above that this year.
Hey, leave my mama out of this. Your boy Will Dissly's still there too, JB. Don't forget about your boy Will Dissly.
Yeah, they give him a 3-year contract. That kind of blew me away.
Yeah, we need to get away from the Seahawks. It's been a tough one speaking of the Seahawks, poor fans. But we're going to move on to, well, the best team in the NFL, really. They won the Super Bowl, so we've got to say that. The LA Rams, we're going to come on to now, if I can get my banner right. And we're going to start off at the QB spot. Matthew Stafford, what a guy. Career year, QB5 tied to Cooper Kupp. He's currently going as QB 14 at Keep Trade Cup below with the sophomores, Trev, Lance, Fields. What's your guys' thoughts on that? Is that fair based on the market value? Do you prefer going the solid veteran, or are you shooting for upside and hoping that these youngsters do make a step and they have a ceiling higher than Stafford?
John, this is your guy now.
Yeah,
he used to be mine, but now like you think he's like a top 5 quarterback or something.
But again, it comes down to the price. And if I can pay a little bit less for a Stafford, who I have in the same tier as Trey Lance and Justin Fields, the ceiling is not as high. But if you look at the range of possible outcomes, I don't think there's a way that Stafford's value bottoms out over the next 3 years. Whereas with those other quarterbacks, it's an unnecessary risk to pay to acquire them, whether it's Lawrence, Fields, or Lance. So that's my issue. Like I still have all 3 of those guys valued fairly high, but Matthew Stafford, I know he's not always exciting. He's not always that sexy pick. He's going a little bit later in startups compared to the 3 sophomores. But with the range of outcomes, I'm sticking with Matthew Stafford. If I'm going to be stuck paying a high price, I don't want that value to be gone in 3 years.
Yeah, like this does fall under John's category, I think, of price dependent. And this was a good question you guys put on there, and a good comparison to those young quarterbacks. And I think it really depends on the draft I'm in and how I want to build that roster. I mean, if you're looking just stone cold at my rankings right now, I would have Stafford at QB 11, a few ahead of those guys. But I don't have a strong stance on it. You know, depending on how the draft was rolling, I'd have no issue just flipping away from my rankings and say, hey, I want to build this team with a Trevor Lawrence or a Trey Lance, maybe a little lesser Justin Fields, because I think the Bears have still a few more questions for me, but very close. I think what's not attractive where the price dependent comes in is Stafford's not sneaky like he was last year. Like we get him at a little bit more of a value. There was a little more buildup. We saw the potential in the Rams last year, but you could get him at some better values. Now the hype's there, and it's going to be a lot harder for the Rams to repeat what they did. I think they're still in a good situation, so I would roll the dice, but price dependent, as JB always says.
As much as I like to get on John for this, I do think he's right. as much as I like Trey Lance could not be a starting quarterback in 2 years. Same thing with Trevor Lawrence, same thing with Justin Fields. It can happen. To where Matthew Stafford, as long as his back holds up, he'll be the starting quarterback for the Rams, probably with Cooper Kupp, and be okay. And so if I'm on a team that's trying to rebuild, and slow play it, I would rather have the younger guys just for the potential upside there. But if I'm on a competing roster and I have Matthew Stafford, I'm never going to look to move him to get to Fields or Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields.
Side note, Mitch hates Trevor Lawrence, right, JB? We can't forget that.
Yeah, we'll go over this.
He does. And two things really quick. Again, I'm trying to keep it short because if I remember correctly, last year we didn't even get through like half of our notes because I wouldn't shut up. I remember I was doing it outside and my son was running behind me.
You were having a great time, John.
I know. I'm having a great time this year too. But I lost my. Oh, remember after his rookie season, Baker Mayfield was the quarterback 2 in Dynasty. So that is how quickly things can change. So I know
more about Dynasty than it does about Baker Mayfield, in my opinion.
It does, but that's exactly why I'm okay taking this boring Matthew Stafford. And then Mitch and I actually got into this over on the Dynasty Theory Patreon this week. $5 a month, free for the rest of May. I got to throw that plug in there mid-show. So anybody that is watching on the pivot point, and we got into it a little bit there for our patrons.
I love that. Quickly to you, Matt and Ali. Stafford, are you on the Stafford side or are you on the youngster upside side?
Ali, do you want to take this first?
Yeah, so give me Stafford ahead of Lawrence and ahead of Fields. I still take the upside of Trey Lance and the situation that he's in. But yeah, I mean, could you honestly say that any of those guys are going to outperform Matt Stafford or outproduce him in the next 2 years? Because you couldn't say it with any conviction. I think Stafford's fine for the next 2 to 3 years, and that's the window that I play on. So I'll happily take Stafford over two of those guys.
Yeah, I just think it's crazy. The guys kind of hit upon it, but I'm going to tell you that the quarterback that's 33-year-olds has probably got more longevity than these young quarterbacks. That he feels like the safer option. It's the guy that we've seen producing in the NFL, whereas these guys are that riskier younger guy. The upside is there, and especially with Trey Lance, we know that upside is definitely mouthwatering. But yeah, with Matthew Stafford, while he's getting up there in age, who's to say that he's not in the NFL longer than all 3 of these quarterbacks? So yeah, it's something that I've found during this entire streamathon, to be honest, that we've spoke about these younger quarterbacks, and yeah, it started to kind of open my eyes that maybe we are putting too much emphasis on that age value when it comes to quarterbacks. And kind of like John said with Baker Mayfield, yeah, you can see it change quite quickly in terms of dynasty. So yeah, Matthew Stafford, I think it is great value, to be honest, at QB 14.
Indeed, you mentioned great values. We're going to come on to the next guy who's potentially a great value, and we swiftly back to you, Matt.
Yeah, so Cam Akers, the running back over there, I think this is a really interesting player to talk about. Obviously, coming off that miracle return from the Achilles injury, came back, managed to play in the NFL playoffs, and while admittedly it wasn't the greatest stretch of games that it had, the fact that he was able to either come back and play a snap last year was just incredible. There's obviously concerns with Akers, and I'm interested to know what you guys think, because I've seen it all over Twitter. The range of outcomes that we could potentially have with Cam Akers could be anything right up to a solid RB1, right down to potentially a low-end RB2. So currently going at ADP RB18. What's your feelings? Are you concerned with him coming back from this injury? And what's your feelings on that RB18 ADP?
I'd say I'm not concerned. I actually like him. I have him in that range, even, maybe a couple spots higher. I'm a little more concerned with maybe the Rams getting that run game going than it is Cam Akers and anything to do with the past injury. I think he's another year removed, another full off season. He's back on his regular training schedule. I think Cam Akers is going to be fine. He's young, he's resilient, he's talented. I just want to watch a little bit more of the Rams and see how they figure getting that running game going just to solidify, because there's definitely some tough choices in that range. Again, it's even as the draft's fallen, who's in there, which running back are you taking? There's some really tough choices around them.
Yeah. Go ahead, John. Go ahead. All right.
Based on ADP, keep trade cut, DTC, whatever resource you want to look at, I think Cam Akers, he's right in that range that I think is fair, but I would move him for a Josh Jacobs plus. You're seeing him go before Antonio Gibson, which now all of a sudden, because they take Brian Robinson in the 3rd round, people hate him. So give me Antonio Gibson straight up, but I think I get a small plus. The concern isn't so much the Achilles. Yes, we would have liked to have seen him produce a little bit more when he did come back, but the time that he was able to come back, the return to play was just extraordinary. But again, you get a theme here with me. I want my backs to catch passes, and I don't know if Cam Akers or anybody else in that backfield is going to be heavily used in the passing game to the amount that I would like. Otherwise, give me the discount on an older Derrick Henry if possible. So, yeah, the price on Akers is fine. He went from extremely overvalued to undervalued. Now it's kind of correcting itself right in that nice range. I would still look to move him at cost, ideally, as opposed to acquiring more shares, just because I prefer not to take on more risk if I don't have to.
I know Mitch is going to blast you here in a sec, but I just don't like the guys you named. I think you could have gave more intriguing comparisons. Like, you look at J.K. Dobbins in that range, the Breece Halls, the Travis Etiennes.
No, nobody's giving you Breece Hall for Cam Akers.
I'd be trying to work some deal with a running back that at least has more upside than the risk of a Josh Jacobs, the age of a Derrick Henry. Help me, Mitch.
That's one see, guys, they don't listen. I'm not saying it's a 1-for-1 swap. Sure, give me Jonathan Taylor 1-for-1.
Gibson was 1-for-1.
That I would take 1-for-1. And Gibson's going to outperform. He's going to outperform in 22 and beyond. Book it.
We got a bet. We got a bet there. Remember that one, Mitchell.
Is John hates, running backs that won't catch the ball, right?
Here comes J.K. Dobbins. Here comes J.K. Dobbins.
But anyways, back to Cam Akers. I really think on how I would approach him in Dynasty would depend on how many teams I have. So I have like over 50 Dynasty leagues just because I'm weird like that. So I probably have him on 10 teams. I'm completely okay with that. But if I only had 2 to 3 teams, I would not want Cam Akers on my teams. I just think his range of outcomes, him being turning into Jonathan Taylor, I just don't see that happening at this point. Could he be as good as what DeAndre Swift was last year? Probably not. I mean, even so, that might be his ceiling. So for me, it would really depend on how I want to build my teams and how many leagues that I have, because he looked horrible in the playoffs. I mean, it wasn't even like he didn't look good. He looked borderline bad, but so did Sony Michel in that offense. So did Darrell Henderson in that offense. And so it's how much of it was it him? How much of it was just the Rams and completely switching to a Matthew Stafford game, which Matthew Stafford has done for the last 10 years. He doesn't have a running game. I don't remember who actually broke the 100-yard rushing thing. The Lions had like 3 seasons to where no running back broke 100 yards. Then all of a sudden a running back did it once and then didn't do it again for another 3 years. It's just happens with Matthew Stafford teams because it makes sense because you want him throwing the ball that much.
And think about the weapons there. You have Cooper Kupp, Allen Robinson. You might be bringing back Odell Beckham. I know that Tyler Higbee is going to come up, but again, there's just not enough work to go around in the passing game for these running backs. So you need some uber efficient backs, and 2.5 yards per carry isn't going to cut it.
Yeah, it's obviously he's a polarizing guy. It's been fun just watching you three go at each other. Actually, it makes it nice and easy for me, Matt and Alice. But we're gonna move on to the wide receiver spot and the greatest wide receiver season I can remember. So we'll come to you, Ali.
Yeah, we got to talk about Cooper Kupp, amazing wide receiver 1 season last time out. Finished almost 100 points clear of the wide receiver 2 in Devontae Adams. But we all know he's now age 29. Well, it will be when the season starts. Is he someone that you're now looking to sell in off season, or do you think that he's such an obvious sell that you're not actually going to get the massive haul for him?
You can't get the return necessary. I'm looking to move him throughout the offseason. So far, I've had no luck. And at that point, I'm just holding him because if you tell me you have him as your wide receiver 3 in Dynasty, I wouldn't argue. If you said wide receiver 10, I wouldn't argue. But he's somebody, if I'm looking to move, it's when the season rolls around, as we typically do with these veterans.
That's a good point. I think with Kupp, I expect another big season. So if I can't get the prices right, like John's saying, hey, I have no problem rolling and competing with Cup, and then it's about time, and you got to be patient. Maybe you can move him later. Maybe you wait to next year and you take that other solid season you get this year. But to JB's point too, I would be trying to move him. Every league is different. You get that guy that's looking to win. What I would try to accomplish as he is pushing that age 30, because in a startup, the price is rich for me. So I'm not getting him. I'm taking someone else because I don't want to take that age 29 receiver at where he's going. So if I have him, similar to Stephon Diggs, I was able to trade Diggs in one league for Jerry Jeudy, a 2023 first and a 2023 second. That's a little bit of a landscape of a deal where if I could get that receiver that's entering that age 30, give me a young ceiling guy that I believe in, and then a future 2023 first, I feel really comfortable.
Lofty, but I like it.
Yeah, how did you get that done? Holy,
well done.
Timing.
But so I am terrible with setting wide receiver lineups. I'm horrible with it. But with someone with Allen Robinson, if you're in one of the leagues to where you have to play 3 wide receivers, if he's your 3rd wide receiver every week, he's the guy you get to lock in every single week. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to be like, oh, do I want to play Tyler Boyd over him? What about Gabriel Davis? What about, the plethora of other wide receivers that are out there? Allen Robinson is just going to be that locked-in guy. To me, right now, he's Brandon Cooks. He's going to be more valuable to me than he is to anybody else. And he's
we talking about Cooper Kupp still?
I thought we were talking about. Oh, wow. So, see?
You're skipping ahead, Mitch. You're skipping ahead.
Yeah. Allen Robinson, guys, for the next question.
Who's been streaming for the last 15 hours?
I mean, come on. Yeah, we were relying on you guys to come in and keep us going.
I was honestly thinking that John and Dan were both not answering the question, and I was thinking the one to actually answer it. But obviously, that wasn't the case. But yeah, Cooper Kupp, he's going to be all right. Yeah.
Matt, Ali, final thoughts on Kupp? Do you think you can sell him at a price that you'd accept, or is it just tough? You're stuck with him now. He's a great guy to be stuck with if you're trying to win. But yeah, closing thoughts on Kupp.
I'll just say what he did last year, while it was amazing, it was something that I did not see in his range of outcomes going into last season. And as I say, what he did was amazing. I feel like he's now just become that player that I don't feel like I can get the value that I'm looking for. Obviously, just seeing what he did last year, I feel like he's still got a couple more seasons like that in him. Maybe not quite to the extent that we saw last year, because that was just an unbelievable year. But he's kind of one of those guys now that where if I've got him, I'm kind of just holding him, kind of happy that I've got him, and I'm just going to keep riding him off into the sunset.
Yeah, I was personally bigger on Robert Woods than I was Cooper Kupp, so it was disappointing for me. But I think you've always got to keep trying to sell him, because once he does get further into that season and he does get close to the magic 30, then I think his value is going to drop considerably. So I think you have to keep selling him, but it's just really hard to get what you need for a guy that could finish as wide receiver 1 again this season.
Yeah, I think that's smooth. Get into your season, find out who your contenders are, look to move off of Kupp, and I think they're going to be smart and not be giving up 23 first. So it might be that you go for a wide receiver and a 24 first, and just that's how it is. I think 23 first when you get into the season are going to be criminally valued. Well, amazingly valued, I guess, if you've got them. But we're going to move on to the next wide receiver. One of my faves, actually. I love this guy. He was on the milk carton last year. It was terrible. But Allen Robinson, he's looking like the clear number 2 option on the Rams. 28 years old, is coming back from that awful 2021 season I mentioned. So just thinking about next season on its own, what sort of season would you be happy with as a dynasty manager if you've got Allen Robinson?
Well, Mitch already gave Allen Robinson's whole
pretty good
biography. With Mitch and I, with our projections, we have him as a back-end wide receiver 2 here in 2022. And I think dynasty managers would be ecstatic, especially if you were able to buy low during whatever we want to call this 2021 season, whatever happened to him, or even startups prior to him going to Los Angeles. But the talent's still there. I think what they're doing in Los Angeles, they're in a prime spot to have an explosive offense once again. So Allen Robinson right there, wide receiver 20 to 24. extremely reasonable. And who knows, we might even be low on that. But the Rams are one of 5 teams that Mitch and I have with a wide receiver duo with both guys in the top 24 this year. So it's very doable, and we've seen it in the past with teams, and Matthew Stafford, he can support it.
So far, the early returns here. I mean, we haven't heard from the whole fantasy wildcard team, but they seem like a good A-Rob vibe. The projections from Mitch and John seem good there, and I think I'm gonna roll with you guys. I definitely see him entering the top 40 with some upside there. I think we've seen what that Rams number 2 receiver position could do. He's fallen into that role. A-Rob is a workout warrior. We've been saying for years if he just had a good quarterback. Well, now he does. So he's in the perfect situation to revive his career. It just comes baked in with a little more risk. But I'm going to roll with all the early analysis we have here is that kind of lower end wide receiver 2 that dynasty managers would be thrilled with this year.
Yeah, I already said my piece. You guys
Love that. Matt, Ali, wrapping it up on A-Rob, big fans. Do you see the bounce back happening? Would you be happy with a wide receiver 3 season, or has it got to be wide receiver 2 to get your juices flowing?
I feel like I've got to let Ali start off, but we know how much Ali loved Allen Robinson last year. So, yeah, let's see what Ali has to say.
Oh, yeah. I famously quoted saying that he's the safest wide receiver 1 in Dynasty last year. And it certainly didn't work out for me. I feel like he's going to have to finish as a top 24 wide receiver to really be back. He's always finished as a fringe wide receiver 1 or a mid wide receiver 1. He's not got that in his range of possibilities, I don't think, for this year, but I can certainly see top 24 season, and I think you've got to be happy with that as Robinson owners. I've got plenty of Robinson in Dynasty, so I'll be happy with that.
Yeah, he's definitely somebody I've been looking to target if I am a contending team. I've tried to throw out 22 seconds to grab him. I've just had a quick look at Keep Trade Cut, where he's currently going. Wide receiver 42. I mean, that feels criminally undervalued for me. I feel like, like we just touched upon, if he can get that wide receiver 2, and I believe he can be a low-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3, and that feels like kind of his floor. So wide receiver 42, yeah, I'm smashing that every day. As I say, I'm trying my best to get in for a 2023 second. Had no joy just yet. People must be getting clued up on Allen Robinson, and maybe I waited a little bit too long, seeing the landing spot, and everybody else thinks that this is great for Robinson. But yeah, definitely a guy that I'm looking to target if I'm contending. I feel like he's still got a few years left in him. It's shocking that he's actually younger than Cooper Kupp as well. I don't know what you guys feel, but I'm surprised that he's actually a year younger. It feels like Robinson's been around for years, and Cooper Kupp maybe not as much, but obviously we know he's a bit of an older prospect. But yeah, Allen Robinson, absolutely love him at value at the minute.
One thing that Mitch and I do on the Pivot Point, which is the Patreon show, we compare the KTC and DTC rankings. We throw those together, average them out, and I like to compare them to my tiers. And I have Allen Robinson, actually. I have him above Gabriel Davis. When you average those two out, they're actually coming at wide receiver 44. If I could pivot off of Gabriel Davis for Allen Robinson, sign me up every day of the week.
Yeah, I love that. I think just finishing off on A-Rob, I love the guy. I think he will be a wide receiver 2 this season. I don't know what it is. I might be looking a fool in a little bit, but I think Cooper Kupp's going to get injured this season. I don't want to wish injury on anybody, but I've just got a sneaky
you bite your tongue.
All right.
I don't know what it is. I've got a feeling. So yeah,
I got to trade him really quick. Hold on.
It might be the lack of sleep that's kicking in now. But we'll move on to the final question of the stream. Actually, it's question number 160 that we'd planned. Obviously, we've asked a lot more questions.
That's awesome, guys. That's awesome.
They're the planned questions. Obviously, we've chipped in bits here and there. It's probably closer to close to 300, but it feels like the perfect way to end the streamathon. We've got a tight end question. We've got Matt talking about tight ends, which he loves tight ends, and also his favorite player of all time, Tyler Higbee. So Take it away, Matt.
I mean, you got 2 out of the 3 there, Kev. Obviously, love tight ends, but I mean, this is one guy that I really don't love. Anybody that listens to the Fantasy Wildcards know Tyler Higbee. I cannot stand this guy, and I feel like it's PTSD from the fact that 2019 season, when it looked like it was going to be an absolute world beater, finished the year looking like an easy tight end one, and then the following year absolutely killed me. So yeah, somebody I really don't like in fantasy, and I hold that against him begrudgingly. So just interested to know what you guys feel on him. I feel like he's clearly that tight end one over there with the Rams. Constantly a mid-range tight end too the last couple of years. So do you guys think he can break into that top 12 range this upcoming season? I'm hoping you're going to say no, but please do let me know what you feel.
What won't let you down? I feel like this ship has sailed, and it's a shame because we were getting good momentum going from Seattle to the Rams, and then now we go to Higbee, who's coming off a knee procedure, and he should be okay for the season. But at age 29, he's taking us back to that conversation we had about Thielen and Lockett and Woods. It's just at that age where I am avoiding him at all costs. The luster's gone. That letdown season, we went through it as you just described. There's just way too many upside tight ends that I would much rather roll the dice on. Let me find a way to get Kmet, Everett, Brevin Jordan, Robert Tonyan, anybody. I'd even go Evan Ingram, or you guys know I'm crazy and love Tommy Tremble. Just keep me away from Tyler Higbee at all costs. That's my tight end rant.
It's a great rant because I completely agree. You know, I've made a lot of mistakes in Dynasty, make them all the time still. But there's things that I've learned, like don't draft a back like CEH over Jonathan Taylor. Don't go after these horrible tight ends just because they're in good situations. I mean, I did it. I forget his name every single show, John. What's the Steelers tight end?
Vance McDonald killed us.
Exactly. Vance McDonald. I was in on him. I was in on Higbee. I was in on Gerald Everett last year. I've been in on all of these horrible guys that you're just hoping will be good. Just go get the good ones because they're always good. Like those guys don't stop being good. Unlike these other tight ends that are good for like 3 weeks. And they're like, you know what? 23 first for that guy. Just don't do it.
Higbee is fine for what he is. Like you said, he's that mid tight end too. And he's going to give you some splash weeks. He does have that touchdown upside, but there's going to be those stinkers that he drops in there from time to time. And I have a lot of Higbee on my roster across my dynasty portfolio, and he's not even worth throwing into a deal because nobody even views him as a sweetener. Like, hey, Kev, let me add Tyler Higbee to get this deal across the finish line. And you're like, no, I'd rather have the roster spot open. Like, so, and on the other hand, if we have deep rosters, deep benches, and I know Mitch has Tyler Higbee, maybe I can get him thrown in for nothing. I'm not actively going out looking to acquire, but I think he's in that, you know, Logan Thomas, Gerald Everett, people might be upset with this, Irv Smith range for 2022. 2022 alone. But yeah, he's fine. He is what he is.
Yeah, I think there's only one Tyler going around that range that you want to be tagging. It's Tyler Gronklin, but that's just an inside joke. But we're off the Rams. We've finished the Streamathon. We've got
made it.
Woo! First of all, I just want to say we've picked the perfect 3 guests to finish the Streamathon. Obviously, energy levels are maybe flagging a little bit towards the end of the game, but you 3 guys, you've come on, you've given us a right laugh. To be honest, my cheeks are hurting, and it's not from sitting down; it's from laughing. You've really pulled us home, and just to let everyone know, we did score a touchdown at the end. We were down by 4, we've won. We've had an amazing show. You've been great guests as always, and please let the audience know where they can find you, what you've got planned, and thank you once again.
Yeah, find me on Twitter at the Bauer Club. Obviously, one of the hosts of Dynasty Theory. Check out the Patreon. It's $5 a month. Like I said, a lot of bonus additional content through there. We have our Discord with 300 some members. The conversations are going 24/7. I feel like at this point we're almost having more international members of the Discord. You UK folks, I feel like you're taking over like the plague. It's like, geez, oh man. But the whole premise of this podathon, the streamathon, I think it's fantastic. And it's something that, mental health needs to be discussed more. And I know Mitch and Dan and we've had conversations separately. There's times I'll message Mitch and I'm like, I can't pod tonight. Like, I'm not there mentally, or, everybody's going through their own struggles. And I think it's so important to talk about it and get that out there. There shouldn't be that negative stigma, because everybody has something. So if you're watching this, don't be a cheapskate. Go donate to such a great charity and help push these guys over their goal of, 1,500 I saw.
Yeah.
So help these guys get there. And Kev, Matt, Ali, thanks again for having us on. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, same, man. Kev, Matt, Ali, you guys rocked it tonight. It was just a pleasure. This hour went by super fast, and then just always a pleasure speaking with you. Find me, FF Coach Dan, at Twitter. And in the spirit of what you're doing tonight, supporting Mind for better mental health, look up charliewaisaki.com. I'm going to be with Charlie at the Fantasy Football Expo in Canton, Ohio, here with my Dynasty Theory brothers, and we're going to have a great time and just getting the word out there and supporting your cause. So hopefully people are donating tonight because you guys just got a great intention. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, I'm just going to repeat what these guys said. I'm at DynoMC on Twitter, but really, I'm just in the Dynasty Theory Discord now. I'm hardly ever on Twitter anymore. But really, thank you to you three. Mental health is so important. And, growing up as guys, we're told, hey, rub some dirt on it. You're going to be okay. Sometimes you're not going to be okay unless you go and talk about it. So really, thank you for doing this.
Yeah, it's a great message, a great way to end the Streamathon. And thank you once again, guys. It's been our pleasure as well as your pleasure. And just really appreciate supporting us over the years and supporting the Streamathons and ending the show, the main event. You've crushed it. We've had a laugh. And thank you very much.
Yeah, awesome, guys. Thanks so much.
It's been an honor, guys. Thank you for coming on.
Then there was three. We've done it.
We've done it.
Absolute legends. So we have come to the end of Stream 4. It's the end of the game, the fourth quarter. We've done 16 hours in the books. Just thank you to everyone that's donated so far. The donation page is going to stay open until the 6th of June. Remember, it's at justgiving.com/fundraising/Fantasy Wildcard 2022. We're raising money for Mind, supporting Mind, an unbelievable charity. Massive thank you to all of our guests over the last 16 hours. We've had some absolute crackers. Thank you to anybody that's listening, that's contributed, that's commented, etc. It's all been it's all added to making this an amazing event. Before we go, any final thoughts from you guys?
I'll just add that it's been an absolute pleasure just being on with you two. Obviously, it takes a lot of preparation to do something like this, but the rewards is well worth everything that we put into it. Kev, I mean, you're the one that leads it, but as a three, I think we've absolutely smashed it today. Just had a quick look at where we're at with the donations, up to 61% now. So it's been a fantastic day. We've managed to really hit in some donations. Obviously, as Kev mentioned, the link's staying open for another few weeks. So if you are listening, not listening live, but listening in the future, then you can still donate up until the 6th of June. So just thank you. All the guests we've had on have been amazing. You two have been amazing. The day itself has been great. And yeah, I've absolutely loved it.
Yeah, we're all just legends, really, aren't we? And, no, just Kev, you've done amazing. Getting just the lineup of guests was just fantastic. Every single show that I joined, I was excited to join just by seeing who was coming on. All the guests were fantastic, so thank you for them. But so yeah, if you can donate, I know we're going to be snipping these up and turning these into podcasts. So if you're not watching it live, you can donate down the line. But yeah, it's just been a fantastic day. It's definitely been well worth it. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah, summed it up perfectly. Just thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed the Streamathon. and made a donation where possible as well. That'd be fantastic. But just really appreciate the support. Thank you very much. Have a good one. We'll see you soon.
See ya.